Okay, everybody, it's Monday, April 15th, and it's 2:30 p.m. We're at the Gaithersburg office of the Montgomery County Board of Elections, and we have a quorum to begin our meeting. Let's go to the approval of minutes. Is there a motion? We have 2 minutes from March 18th, 2019. Board meeting and executive
We
session.
do them separate, or because
It's up
the
to you.
executive session weren't amended? There was no change.
Okay, so let's do the March 18th board meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I move we accept them as amended.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, they're approved. Now let's go to the March 18th executive session minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I move. I approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We're going to have an executive session today, which we're going to add regarding personnel.
And Jim, we have about 8 late absentee ballots. I suggest that we just add that at the end of the meeting.
Seriously?
Still,
Yeah.
8?
But since we stopped doing minutes and our minutes have been approved, it's really kind of to go out into the board of, convene as the board of canvassers. I suggest that the board just handle it at the end of the meeting.
So we got to go into the board of canvassers? Okay.
Just, the minutes will reflect the board acted as in the capacity of the board of canvassers.
Okay.
And that's before the executive session.
Correct.
Okay. Lisa, do we have any public comments?
We do have Barbara Sanders who asked to
Sure.
address the board.
Welcome, Barbara. Pull up a chair.
Purple line now.
Yes.
Oh gosh, you even have paper that matches your clothing.
I
ran out of paper.
Oh,
so.
wow.
What color is that?
Boy, is this some...
What color is that?
Springtime, lilac.
Lilac paper. Wow.
Yeah.
We ran out?
Sorry.
Okay, well, listen, you can... Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You got...
Are you right?
I'm fine. Barbara Sanders, Silver Spring, Maryland, liaison from the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again about the transparency of the Board of Elections' conduct of business. The current proposal on today's agenda on handling the board minutes will allow the public to have easier access to your meetings in a very timely manner with the annotated meeting agenda listing the time of the topic's discussion on the web-posted recording. Similarly, having the time annotations added to the approved minutes of the meeting actions will make it quicker to focus the lengthier discussions on a particular topic that brought the members to the final action. Montgomery County League endorses both of these additions as good examples of our National League principle that public bodies should give adequate information to voters about their decisions and to make public records accessible. We also applaud the for the spelling error, posting of this type of proposal with the agenda, which allows this type of public comment prior to your discussion. And I also wanted to personally thank Board President Shalik for his panel participation at yesterday's Sunday at the Movies screening for the League of the Best Democracy Money Can Buy. It was the most recent example of the frequent assistance board members and staff that provided the League efforts to educate our members and the public about the wide-ranging aspects of electoral procedures and operations. Again, thank you to all the board members, especially retiring board member Keefe, and to the staff for their knowledge and experience you have brought to these League programs and discussions. Much appreciated.
It was a very good program.
Yeah, they showed a movie. Also, we have a retiring member, Alex Vincent.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It's Alex's last day, too, last meeting. So
Hey, Barbara, I had a question. Do the other counties in Maryland have League of Women Voters chapters? Do you know?
We have in a majority of counties, not all of them. We have at-large members, I think, in almost all the counties.
Has there been any discussion that you know of among those other chapters about how the other county boards of election prepare their minutes?
Not that I'm aware. We monitor, our county monitors your action, the board actions, and we do go to the state board, but I'm not sure how many of the other boards. when some of the Montgomery County board members that have done this have been state elections coordinators. We've encouraged them to do so. But I'm really not sure right now how many are doing it, and I have not heard any comment about minutes.
Thanks, Barbara. Thank you for everything, by the way. Okay, Margaret, your report.
Okay, announcements. Just a reminder, in case it's not done, the State Ethics Commission sent me a reminder. Financial disclosures due April 30th. The Election Assistance Commission requested that I serve on a working group, Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Working Group. I have agreed to serve. I did make a presentation on April 10th to the Election Assistance Commission Disaster Preparedness Recovery Work Group via WebEx and conference call. And then we've started our high school outreach, and so Alberto is out there with lots of recruiting staff and a couple of our part-timers and some families occasionally doing we're registering people to vote and looking for election judges. Personnel, budget analyst position. Allison.
I really have nothing new to report on that. We just got a little delayed in getting the interviewing process going, but we're ready to start our interviews, I think, next week.
Did we get a lot of applicants?
We did get a bunch of applicants. We only see the ones that come through with the Office of Human Resources highest rating, so I'm not really sure offhand how many applicants we had.
How many will you be interviewing?
I don't think I'm allowed to disclose that right now. The county's interview process. I can probably do that at a later time, but I'm not sure about the rules on that.
Okay.
Okay. With regards to our IT staff, our IT staff is continuing to perform their post-election maintenance. The DS200s are done. The ballot marking devices have been completed. The poll books are in the process. And then the ballot booth repairs and performing SBE inventory. Additionally, the state has mandated that all the poll books, our older poll books, have battery testing to commence, and the State Board of Elections contacted me on Friday, and they anticipate coming here in about 10 days to begin that process. Other counties have started, the smaller counties. The batteries seem to be holding a charge really well. The batteries, when the product was first introduced, the battery held a charge of approximately 3 hours, and it's been holding at that in the smaller counties. But we have approximately 1,000 plus poll books that we'll be testing.
I assume these are unusual batteries?
They are unusual batteries, and we have been advised, and that's how come we're starting now, that if the battery has to be replaced, these batteries will have to be made overseas and shipped back here. And so, depending on the completion date, we're hoping to have the batteries by December of this year.
Margaret, no, I don't understand this kind of thing, but the poll book batteries hold for 3 hours, and then once they're plugged in, you're okay? Or
No, if for some reason the power would go out.
Oh, all right.
Okay. They're supposed to have juice for 3 hours.
This is all auxiliary.
So it's a backup.
It's a backup. Mm-hmm.
And is this something that they have done each election? They come in and test them? No.
And how many people are they sending? And
Well, we'll do most of the work, but we have our one state board regional guy, John Spears.
and he watches you all do it.
Well,
That's
he's
his job.
monitoring. He really monitors and makes sure that the paperwork is.
And he's on state board staff?
Yes,
He
he's
actually
state
gets
board.
paid? Okay.
Do you happen to know from where the batteries are imported?
Not Russia, China.
That was where I was going. Thank you.
Okay. The budget. First of all, with regards to the budget, I'm going to let Allison take the lead, but we have been requested to do a follow-up meeting. with
Forgive me, I can't let that go. I just can't let that go. Has anybody ever objected to the batteries coming in from China onto our polling devices? And can we add that paragraph to the letter you're writing? What in the world are we thinking? I'm not asking. I'm not asking you to answer it. I'm just putting it out as a.
There may not be an American company who can manufacture it right now.
Might be.
It may not exist.
Sort of like TVs.
I mean, I think the question would be making sure that the batteries are operating the way they're supposed to.
With no additional enhancements to them.
Well, yeah, okay, I would agree with that.
Thank you. So, just wanted it on the phone.
Okay. On to the budget. The GO committee has requested that the board come back to present an outreach budget. It will be May 2nd at 9:30 a.m. at the COB 7th floor. And I'm going to let Allison and take the lead on this, and Allison and Roberto kind of want to lay it out for you.
So, let me
Oh, can I just?
rewind for, well,
Do you
okay,
want to
go
do
ahead.
Are you going to do the timeline?
Well, I was just gonna
Oh.
comment on the 19
Okay.
budget before we move into the 20 budget.
Okay.
I don't think there's any real surprises here in the 19 budget. I think, as you all know, we spent a lot on election judges in particular, and temporary staff in this election. So we're still in the black. We're in the middle of doing our third quarter analysis right now to kind of assess where we stand. We do anticipate running into the red, but probably, and we will kind of see the timing of some of these things, quite likely not until after the fourth quarter bill comes in well into next fiscal year. So, we're monitoring all of that, but that's where we stand as far as the fiscal 19 budget right now.
May I ask a question about that?
Mm-hmm.
The fiscal year 19 budget, and you'll have to pardon me if we already discussed this and decided it, but what caught my attention was that the amount that we're spending on both maintenance of computer systems and on computer equipment is substantially lower than approved. And I just wanted to know if that is intentional on our part, if that is like a cost-saving measure that we are taking in order to deal with our deficit, or whether there's anything we can do to make sure that our computer systems are properly maintained and replaced if necessary.
Part of that is a journal transfer from our department to the Department of Technology Services. And so I know that there was one transfer made earlier this year, and I know that there will be a second transfer. Just as the print shop sometimes lags with regards to billing us back for internal services, likewise with the DTS.
So we're still getting the maintenance and the equipment, it's just that it's late in moving from our account to someone else.
It's a journal entry type thing that we do.
Okay.
But that's a significant difference.
Well, I'll talk to Josephine and find out what the story is. We certainly, obviously, DTS will want their money. The Department of Technology Services will
Right.
want their
Well,
money.
just as long as they provide the service.
Well,
that
of course they will
yeah.
be providing the service.
There's also some discretionary elements in some of this, and we are certainly tightening our belt, in anticipation of being tight for the end of the fiscal year. But like that computer equipment and supplies, you're also going to see things like training, laptops, speakers, things like that, equipment that we have gone ahead and, gotten in other fiscal years, that, we just recently, one of the recent fiscal years, we went ahead and got some newer laptops for the training rooms, and so we don't need to buy newer laptops this year for the training rooms, and so we're able to tighten our belt a little bit more on some of these budget items because we're tight, and we had to shift some priorities.
Okay, thank you.
For fiscal 20, the outreach discussion, I'm actually digging through my papers here for the timetable that, I have a timetable here from, do you have your timetable, Margaret, that you kind of wrote up?
Well, okay, in order to meet the GO committee's requirements, what the timetable that we've worked out with the county council staff person and the executive staff person is to any recommendations that the board members have, if you could get them to Allison and Humberto by close of business next Monday, April 22nd. That way then they will have 48 hours to take that information and turn it around so that they can send it back out to you. You can make your comments. And then on the 25th, April 25th, we'd like to have a finalized document, or very, very close to the finalized document, and get it to the county council staff on April 26th so that they can review it, whatever they need to do it, to prepare it for the board pack, for the county council GO committee packet, which she needs it by, she would like it April 30th, but May 1st, so that it can be distributed at the GO committee. So that being said,
So basically, the thinking then is if we can take the next week to sort of solidify an understanding with board members on what direction we want this document to go in regarding the outreach. Then
And
that
this is limited
go
to
back and forth with the
outreach?
council. And this is where I think we want the board's input, and I don't know how much, how we stage this discussion here in this meeting or in other venues, but as Margaret and Hilberto and I and, some other folks on staff have just talked about this in the last few days, I think I think as you all really know, we don't really have as far as our budget is concerned, we don't really have an outreach program. We have some outreach expenses. We have the 2 full-time equivalents that were added for outreach. We have the line item that covers advertising. They're separate. They're in separate areas of our budget. And we have Hilberto's time and all of the various things that Hilberto focuses on. But the printing and postage, the materials that Hilberto takes out, if he needs to pay a table fee somewhere, if he needs to, get a table skirt, these are not things that we have a line item for. These are things that we kind of pluck out of where we have money in the budget. If we didn't spend as much as anticipated in polling place rentals, then we pay out of that line item for, a rental fee for a table. And so Alberto is a master at begging, borrowing, and stealing from other programs.
Let me ask a question.
But we
This-
do
but you've
that.
never had a budget item for outreach. Herbert doesn't give, when you're putting the budget together, you don't give a budget covering all of that kind of thing. You've
his
never done
outreach
that.
budget is focused on personnel.
On personnel, but not on anything else.
Correct.
Not on whatever you call it, hard
So
items.
we see an opportunity here as kind of a stacked exercise to be able to sort of package up what we currently spend on outreach, and then whatever, the items are that the board, wants to ask for, because the fact of the matter is that we do things with outreach right now that we don't have a line item appropriation for. So we're sort of visualizing a staff product.
Are
that
you
lays
are
out
you going to
what-
pull those numbers out and what those items are that we've been, spending money on and that you put into this overall
If that
outreach?
makes sense to the board as an approach to this question, then yes.
Well, I don't see how we can do it in a vacuum.
No,
I mean,
it seems to me there ought to be a budgeted line item, at least, or a department. I mean, it's a big thing he does.
Yeah,
And we ought to have it
that's a good
budgeted
idea.
correctly,
Dave?
whatever that means. Doesn't that make sense?
What I heard from the council on Thursday was an affirmative desire for us to do outreach in 2 different areas. One was the outreach necessary to educate voters about the difference between early voting and election day voting, to encourage people not to necessarily vote at the early voting site on election day, but to vote at early voting for early voting. And the other that the chair of the committee made very clear was that with the increasing immigrant population of Montgomery County, to do more of what we already do in terms of reaching out to immigrant communities. I thought that perhaps a way to proceed here was not just to start with the board, but to start with a staff proposal for, if you had extra money, what could you do with it that you don't already do? Because it was very clear from what I heard, Ms. Navarro was not talking about making sure that we didn't have to move things within budget categories. She was talking about providing more service than we are now, and she wasn't doing it as a critic. She's done it as someone who helped us get money in the past. But she was saying, and I think correctly, that the need for that kind of service is potentially increasing. We have an upcoming primary election that is likely to be of great interest to everyone, but particularly in the immigrant community. And I would think that it might be beneficial to us to get thinking from you all, from Gilberto and Allison, as to, if we got $30,000 more dollars, what would we propose to do with it? The advertising budget that Alex and I worked on in committee was based on, the limited amounts that we had, and there were lots of, I think we made a decision not to advertise in the Washington Post. And the theory there was, we have limited money, and, and then a number of people said to us, how can you not advertise in the, in the publication that most people read? Most people, in Montgomery County. And with more money, would we do more? With more money, would we advertise more on WTOP, which we know is, listened to by a lot of people? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we would do if we had more money, and I think that the council was asking us, to give them, to give them an example of what we would do.
Question: did we understand Councilwoman Navarro to be asking about outreach as opposed to how much money we're putting into advertising?
She did not distinguish.
No.
She I mean, we could go back and listen to what she said. But
That
she didn't,
terminology has always been, at least my experience has been when we're at the committee, it gets,
It's one thing.
well, outreach.
Either way, you're.
But I know that
reaching out to
outreach
people.
here involves more than just the advertising.
Right. Yes, but
And-
ideally you want it to be in concert.
Oh, yeah, well, but we need, it seems to me, we need to pull out what it is that falls into these categories, what we're spending now, and what additional we would like.
Mr. President, obviously, when we received the call from the council staff person, Allison, I, and Humberto happened to be together, and of course, we thought of all sorts of different ways to spend money, and where we have some deficiencies. So, Humberto and Allison, we would be, how quickly could we put some of our, my presentation will, a little bit later, will address some of these issues, but could we put something together by Friday to send out to the board?
Sure.
And you guys can look at it and say, this is it. This is good, this is not so good, we think you could spend money here. But again, we have to meet this timeline to get to the council.
Can you also add to that a listing of where the advertising goes presently?
Yeah, it's in, yes, we
Well, it seems to me you ought to set up a whole category, a whole budget category, or a department, or whatever word you want to put on it. But I would keep it fairly broad, since one, it hasn't been done before this way, and two, we might get more that way. It's not hugely detailed. And then give Umberto or whomever's doing it a little bit of leeway as we go down.
Well, Allison will be the lead, and we will support Allison in the development of whatever plan the staff can present, and we'll get it out to you.
I'll lead the process. Obviously, Gilberto is he's the one who is the creative lead here.
And the reason I'm saying,
yeah.
because Humberto also is supposed to be going out to high schools right now, so I need to balance.
So what I'm
we can
hearing,
collaborate though.
keeping in mind that basically it's the end of next week that we've got to make sure we get this stuff to the council, and we need to be in communication with OMB through that process too, of course. That what I'm hearing is sort of the preferred will of the group here is that we go ahead and get some staff stuff on paper to you, so that can be the basis for board members to then say, oh, I like this or I don't like that.
Yes.
I didn't see a whole lot of resistance to us taking a couple of days on that.
Yeah,
But if we don't
only
get it
thing
to
is
you
that
until
this is a-
Friday, you
this
need
is-
longer than
yeah,
Monday
this
to
is-
get back to us.
Yeah, this is a holiday
Holiday
weekend
weekend.
for everybody, or
Right.
almost everybody, so.
Right.
Any thought that the communications committee should weigh in on this? I know that they did a lot of the work behind the advertising portion of it, in terms of spelling out all what you were talking about. You know, how much was going into
Well,
these different areas.
I thought that we kind of set out principles that could, that could continue to be followed, which was that we don't take away from current advertising for future advertising, and that we try to spread it around to different groups and different media outlets.
I think we, didn't our fiscal 20 request actually ask for 70,000?
I don't remember.
Because
kind of
that's what it was for
That's where
last
we're
time,
starting.
yeah.
Right.
You
right.
got the impression that Councilmember
It was more than an
Navarro-
impression. She made it very clear. She basically, the way I interpret it, and this is just my interpretation because obviously other people were sitting in the same room that I was, we were talking, and I had made the point about how additional outreach would help us in terms of the wait times in the precincts, and Ms. Navarro made clear that she was interested also in an expansion of the other outreach that we've been doing previously in addition to that. And I mean, I thought she said it pretty directly.
You mean non-advertising? Is that what you meant?
No, I mean, we were talking mostly about the need to address the wait times in
Right.
the 12 precincts that have the worst wait times, and about different things that could be done to help address that, including equipment, personnel, and outreach to voters to encourage them either to vote during early voting or to at least know to go to their own precinct on election day. And she made clear that she was interested in an expansion of and I don't think she was distinguishing between outreach and advertising.
Yeah.
But she made clear that she wanted to do an expansion of what we've already been doing, not just this special category. Now, part of that was that I made a point of mentioning whose districts the 12 precincts were in, and none of them were in Navarro's district. She's the only district council member who doesn't have one of the 12 most needy precincts in terms of wait time. But I think part of that also was she has a long-standing interest in our outreach program that she was the one who got us the extra money last year.
I think I feel this is an important program and we need definitely to go ahead with some kind of categorization, but we also have to keep in mind that we have a possible $250,000 thing that we have to add judges because of the first same day voting and whatever, and we just have to keep that in mind when we're looking at additional money.
Well, that's why I asked it. I mean, isn't that part of it? Have we provided to them the numbers in terms of additional equipment and additional election judges that we're going to need?
Yes.
So this
For
is
which category?
She was talking about
The spreadsheet, there have been 3-4 spreadsheets that have been provided to council staff related to, one, expansion of early voting,
Same day registration.
same day voter registration,
Margaret circulated those on, I think, Friday.
yeah.
And if they're not on the website, they will be.
But yes, the council has received that information.
But those are separate and apart from what the committee was asking us about outreach, because the committee knows about all of those other areas. And they also know about our general budget circumstance. They were not saying, give us a budget for outreach that takes into account that you're going into deficit. They said, give us a budget for outreach. So I mean, it was very clear that was what they were asking us to do.
So in light of this conversation then, unless anyone feels that there's some particular omission in terms of the focus of it, Alberto and I will work as quickly as we can to pull together a document that lays out both our current activities for outreach in this area and where those funds come from, and then the kinds of activities that would support the goals that have been talked about and what some of those numbers would be, And we'll just kind of lay this out as sort of like a framework document then, for the
Name
board
it.
to take a look at.
Name it as the, whatever it is, the outreach program, name the program. Just like we'd have a poll book program named. So we know exactly what you're talking about.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, going further, voter registration, Jessica?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On the budget there, some comments and questions about the GO committee meeting. I thought it went pretty well to some extent. Jim had a very good introduction. He showed a great deal of understanding about the problems we've had in the past, and the committee members understood that, and David did a very good job explaining why we need to have more money in general. And I was very pleased to see that Tom Hucker wanted to give us $125,000 more to help out with the Dirty Dozen and make sure we have more money available for personnel, staff, and for equipment. And then I understood you, Margaret, to say that, well, I don't think you embraced that $125,000. I thought you were rejecting the need for the additional budget money for equipment. And if I'm correct about that, why did you take that position?
Well, in my position, I serve three masters. I serve the board. I also am a director for the county executive. And I also, my other manager, direct person that's in charge of me is Linda Millimone. And the message that I received repeatedly from the county executive was to encourage the council to hold the line and to support the county executive's budget.
Is that from the executive himself?
Additionally, no, it's from the budget office. Additionally, based on our forecast models, the additional equipment, we have already ordered additional equipment for the primary election. My comment was that I'm not opposed to receiving more money for equipment. The fact of the matter is that would be wonderful, but the additional equipment that we have requested will meet the needs of a presidential primary. And that's based on the fact that 19 states will have had their Democratic primary by April 28th. 25% of our registered voters here in Montgomery County are not affiliated with a political party. And looking at the last election in which we had a crowded Democratic primary, the Democratic turnout was 61%. And that was the year Obama and everybody and Hillary, and I can't even remember everyone that was running. So that was why I said what I said. That basically there is a deficit for the entire county, and that there's an $83 million deficit for the entire county, and that we should try to hold the line. But as I explained to the budget office and to Mr. Manaleno, that the board has in the past and always will go to the council and not necessarily support the county executive's budget. And I have told that to the budget office repeatedly, and she acknowledged as much after the hearing.
I'm sorry, she is
Crystal Sallee.
How do you spell her last name?
Sallee. You
Okay.
met her in the
Yes,
hallway.
I remember meeting her in the hall. I just didn't know how to spell her name.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one who was suggesting that you needed to hold the line for the executive's budget?
That is a message that's given to all the directors at all of our management meetings.
And do you consider yourself to be in the same category as the directors who are appointed directly by the county executive?
I consider myself being held responsible by three different groups of individuals: the board, county executive, and the state election administrator. I am expected to follow all of your guidelines and requirements, and sometimes you don't always all agree.
Okay, so voter registration?
Voter registration, Jessica.
So last month I came to you, told you we were working on the ERIC, which we completed, which resulted in us sending out about 19,000 confirmations to voters to ask them to please update their address. That our registered voter count's up to 717,322, and we are working on.
Sorry, say again.
Sorry, this was on what I sent out to you guys at the beginning of the month.
Oh, yeah, okay, got that.
It was 717,322 registered voters, and now we're working on several.
And that's a combination.
Yes, of active and inactive. We're working on several cleanup projects the state board has us going through, checking for them, and working through the database. So that's what we have going on.
Additionally, just so you know, we are having a working JAD session with the state board, and I have asked the state board, and today I received confirmation that Jessica will be assigned to that committee to help recommend improvements in the MD voters registration system to make it more responsive, hopefully.
Good.
Going on then to the state board, candidate filing began on February 5th. They've been sending out reminders about confirming and proofing names. Most of the candidates are just basically making sure that they're have their registrations updated. The state board requested my appearance now on April 24th to explain the decision not to have the election judge verify every voter name because of the SBE bulk update to EPB. I will be there.
That's the same thing
It's
that
the same
was
thing.
supposed to have been in March.
Right, but
Okay, so no need for us to take another motion.
no. SBE requested the local boards to begin exploring network options for the 2020 and 2022 same-day voter registration. So Janet has been reaching out to the Department of Technology Services, and will also be reaching out to the school system technology services to see, how same-day voter registration may or may not be networked in the future. Okay, and then legislation.
Well, just talking about elections, Robin Ficker is circulating another petition, so we can expect that.
What's this about?
I think to cap property taxes at the cost of living.
Didn't we already enact that?
I think that's what it is. I'm not 100. I think that's what it is. That's a cap on property
Is it the
tax.
number of council members that need to vote to exceed the
I'm not
cap?
sure.
Yeah, I bet that's it.
That's also been voted on before.
Yeah.
Well, he succeeded one time,
Right.
and then
It's a
that
cap.
was undone, and I suspect he now is he's circulating a petition to have it reinstated.
Something
To have a
to
supermajority or
Something like-
unanimous vote on when you exceed the cap.
So-
But I haven't seen it.
Either have I, but he's gathering signatures.
Does he hire a company to do that, or does he,
No. He and,
his buddies?
his buddies, yeah.
He has one person in particular that does a lot of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
What does he need, 10,000?
10,000, correct.
Keeps him out there.
Okay.
Sure does.
Legislation.
Legislation, you have two handouts that I added to your packets. The first is the chart that you're familiar with that is really a copy and paste from the General Assembly's website of the most recent status of bills. So that's an update from the advance packet, since that did go out before the legislature adjourned. The other, I apologize for not sitting this earlier, we just finished writing this up this morning, is a staff summary of kind of the key provisions of the bills that were passed by the legislature. And the two really to highlight, I tried to sort of put them all in order that I thought they might be. meaningful for you all, same-day registration, or I'm choosing to kind of brand it as election day registration to distinguish from that thing we had before that was just same-day registration and early voting. Because election day registration is going to be a little different, I think, than the early voting.
But is it still going to be early voting at
The
registration?
key thing to note about election day is going to be that changes of address are going to be just like they are now. Changes of address will still be by provisional ballot if you show up at the wrong polling place. It's really only the people who are truly new, who were not in that poll book at all, there or in another polling place, that are going to be, same-day registrants that are going to be registering and voting the day of in a new and different way. Everything else, it appears, of course, the state board still has to write regs, and we still may have a fair amount of back and forth over that. But everything
Who does
else.
that?
I'm sorry?
Who does that?
Who does that? The state board. I'm not sure I can really speak to.
Who does the regs? For the same-day voter registration?
I'm honestly not sure which
Might be
staff
their
at the
council.
state board are going to take the lead on
But the
this.
state board
Well,
does
I
it.
think.
The state board does it.
State board will do the Comar regs.
Does it
Now,
all?
Oh.
our committee is going to recommend regs.
Jessica is chair of a committee at Mayo that is going to be trying to really take the lead on this and write some things for the
So
state
we'll
board
lobby
to
Jessica.
consider. So yeah, we have a strong lobbyist in Jessica on this. Ultimately, the legal responsibility lies with the state board. So there were multiple bills that the language kind of passed back and forth for, but ultimately the discussion about an early voting site, we did not get additional early voting sites. The two sites that were initially introduced in House Bill 79, there was language in House Bill 237 eventually that passed that it kind of takes us back to where we were a couple years ago, where we had the option at the county level for one additional site if the county's governing board, effectively the county executive, the county council, and you all agree to add one site, then we can add one.
With
Is that-
consent of the state board.
Right.
Was that an issue that would have been brought before GEO or not, because it's for the next?
It was brought before, but
We made sure that they knew.
well, actually, this bill, the first bill was gutted, 79. And then the day Mr. Bush died, this all happened like within 24 hours. So as soon as I saw that they gutted House Bill 237 to add the local option, I got a copy of the bill and forwarded to county council staff so that at least she knew, and she has a copy of what the fiscal note was that I put together, and I got her the link to the state fiscal note on the House Bill 79, right? The one that they gutted.
Yeah, 79.
Okay.
Senate Bill 1004 and House Bill 176, there's a whole bunch of different deadline changes, ultimately that get us to a point where we now are going to have 9 more days after we've got a ballot finalized in order to get everything ready for the election. So now the state will be certifying the content and arrangement of the ballot 64 days in advance instead of 55 days in advance. There are a number of different provisions in that. But on this and on all the others, I did just note this morning that actually the legislature's 90-day report is now up on their website as well. So there's a lengthier, I think it's like 13 pages, description of the election provisions that I have into here. If you want to go into that, short of digging into the bills directly. Another one that just doesn't have a real impact for us here because we are, we're working late by the time we get to the voter registration deadline. But technically, we no longer are. We can no longer accept voter registrations up until 9 p.m. on the deadline. It will now be 5 p.m. This was something that other counties were seeking in order to be able to, not have the overtime that day and basically be able to close their shop up at 5 o'clock. People can still do online transactions until midnight, though. So it's really just that over-the-counter transaction that is due by 5 p.m. There's not a 5 p.m., a 9 p.m., and a midnight deadline anymore. It's just a 5 p.m. and a 11:59 deadline. The rest of these are really not, you can take a look at these according to your interest. I'm not sure how much time you want to take talking through.
Do they have
other
batteries?
bills.
Does that include the batteries?
The Foreign Ownership of Election Services Providers Bill, what it does, and you may remember there was a sort of media report that the company that the state was using for database and website hosting services had foreign ownership, and it was controversial.
I know,
And
that's what I'm asking.
Right. So what this bill does is in a situation like that, number one, it requires the state administrator to put language in contracts with election services providers that prohibits foreign ownership, investment, or control. And if they come to a determination that there is foreign ownership, investment, or control, then the state administrator of elections is entitled to cancel the contract. One thing that I know has been of interest to the board before is often there's a case where we've reported election results daily during the canvass, but the state board doesn't catch up with the results that we've reported until the end of that particular canvass. That will change now because all of the counties are required to do what we do and to report their results during the canvass every night. Where often they have waited until the end of, say, absentee 2, or until the end of the provisional canvass to report their days partial. We can all watch video streams of the state board meetings now. They'll be doing that. And your counterparts at other local boards they're now going to have 5 members too. It'll only be Montgomery and Prince George's that even have substitute members. Everybody else will just be a board of 5.
But aren't some of those boards, I was going to say, they're tiny.
Now 3 with 2 alternates.
Wow.
And so they're making them all full members now on their boards. There was a bill on the use of Social Security numbers. It really just catches up to what we were already doing in not requiring anyone to provide their full Social Security number, and it's just last 4. And then the last one on my summary here is high school election page program. Senator Simon Ayer from Anne Arundel County had taken a strong interest in Gilberto's Future Vote program and really wanted to see similar programs across the state. What they ended up with in the bill is really more limited than Future Vote. The majority of the students that Gilberto has in his program are under age 14, and what they have created and they're having the state write regs for is a program that is limited to students who are 14 and over. It is a voluntary program, so our program will continue outside of whatever these regulations are that the state board puts forward, but that may be of interest or maybe something that you hear about.
Good work.
Allison, the same-day registration election date, that doesn't affect the early voting registration, does it?
There's always the possibility that the state is going to tweak things in regulations, but in terms of the new legal requirements, it would appear that early voting is going to stay just the way it is now, same-day registration to early voting. And election day is effectively going to stay just the same way it is now, except that someone who is not in the poll book at all and comes with proof of residency will be able to register and cast a ballot.
Provisional or regular? Regular or provisional?
I am not sure what regulations the state will come up with. I think the legislation seems to be written much like the legislation was written for early voting. And then by regulation, the state created this whole process for pre-qualified voters. And if you're pre-qualified, you get a live ballot.
Right.
And if you're not pre-qualified, you don't. I'm not sure what the state board is ultimately going to come up with. But it would seem to me there will be live ballots.
It contemplates the live ballot. That's what
And
it
so they're going to also have that pre-qualified list?
I don't know.
Oh, really?
And
That
that's
was
why
by
the
reg.
connectivity becomes so important.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that you'd be able to go ahead and know who has registered, where they registered. So if you had multiple items of identification that had different addresses on them, you wouldn't be able to go from one polling place to
Right.
another, register and cast a live ballot.
Live being a non-provisional. Go to the scanner.
Provisional, because if it were provisional, then obviously we wouldn't need the
Right,
connectivity
we could
because
sort
we
it
could
out.
catch it on the back end. But if they're going to be able to vote their ballot and have it scanned, then there's the potential they could vote they could register and vote in multiple places.
There
Now,
will be some
there
scenarios.
are other states, not many, but there are other states that have same-day voter registration. And that's certainly some of the things that the local boards of election staff are going to be looking at in terms of how this is adopted.
There will be scenarios with live ballots, and if past is precedent, then the state board will probably be very, looking to find those scenarios where somebody might be able to get away with something, and they'll make sure that those scenarios are by provisional ballot.
And it's only going to be new registration and change of address, but not change of party. Is that correct?
Correct, not change of party.
No change of address.
There's no change to the current rules for change of party, and there's no change to the current rules for change of address. It is merely getting on that list in the first place,
If you're a change of address, you're going to vote provisional
on election day.
On election day.
It'll still be change of address and vote.
Yeah, okay.
Until, the theory is that in 2022, when you get the new poll books, will be able to network, and that's the $400,000 on top of the $500,000
Yeah, I was going to say or more.
If we get the new poll books.
in 2022. Okay.
Kevin?
Judicial Watch, the state and Judicial Watch are still briefing the cross motions for summary judgment. That's going to finish up in the next, I think, a week or so. And once that has been fully briefed, Judge Hollander will either rule on just the papers that have been submitted and or hold a hearing. Judge Hollander has historically been one who rules on the paper and oftentimes does not hold hearings. So it wouldn't surprise me if 6 months from now she just issues an opinion on the cross motions for summary judgment. So that's Judicial Watch. As you all are well aware, the gerrymandering case was heard before the Supreme Court. Sort of some interesting dialogue between the justices and the two sides. They generally try to decide their cases by the end of the session.
Which is
June. So I suspect a decision will be issued between now and June. But they try and get their opinions out by the end of the session. So I wouldn't think this would be anything different. So I suspect we'll get something in the next couple of months on that issue. And my only other item is on Friday I sent you all a letter that you all requested to be sent to the State Board of Elections and Ms. Lamone, requesting a timetable on upgrades and replacement of equipment. If no one has any proposed changes to that, I will make sure that Lisa has that so that Jim can go ahead and sign it today.
I haven't read it.
I know I haven't either.
I've read it and I liked it.
It's brief, so we can let you know before. Yeah.
Do you all have that in your, or did you bring it with you?
It's in the packet. Isn't
No,
it in the packet? Oh, then I brought it. I don't know. I printed a
Get
bunch
with
of
us
stuff.
here.
Yeah, Brenda emailed it out Friday.
Right, and I printed it out. I just haven't read it.
Okay.
But may I suggest that the timing of this, presuming this will all move forward today, this can then go out and be there before the state board meeting, which is what, next week or the week after?
24th.
Yeah.
Okay,
When do you leave for Denmark?
May.
Okay. All right. Going on to the wrap up. So, the last several meetings you've heard from staff with a lot of detailed information on how the election went. And I wanted to provide a wrap up and answer any questions so we can finish out the board's tenure with any closing thoughts or questions on how the election went. Improvements. First and foremost, we kept our standard in timely reporting of election results. In 2018, 99.01% of the results were in by 11 o'clock versus 98% in 2016. Equipment, information technology. The equipment was correctly deployed for the election and met the state board's protocols for security. When our turnout was higher than projected during early voting, we notified the state board we needed additional equipment, and we received the balance of the state's inventory, which was 6 DS200s and 1 additional high-speed scanner for the campus. Our security requirements mean that our IT staff had to be perfectionists about the security seals on all the paperwork. So for the accuracy for the poll books, the accuracy approved to 100% in this year, and for the scanners it went to 99.9% the prior election. Election judges and recruiters met their targets and were prepared to exceed them when the turnout for early voting required it. They responded by adjusting their daily changes in the voter turnout as we kept asking for more and more workers. We achieved a 95% satisfaction rating from election judges on their training, 93% continued rating from the voters on the service they received. Our no-show rate continues to be low at 2% in comparison to the national average, which we have heard is as high as 20%. Jessica Jones took on the new responsibilities, successfully training the recruiting staff and managing the early voting recruiting and training process. Adjustments to the processes and training were made so that all precincts were fully staffed with chief judges. We continue to work at decreasing the average age of our workforce to 50, which at one point was around the national average at 72. 16% of our election judges are 25 years of age. We also doubled the number of Korean and Vietnamese bilingual judges, and no precincts received an unsatisfactory rating on the precinct performance report, which is a nationally recognized program. Future vote, midterm election highlights. We had 1,500 high school students serving as election workers. We had 2250 future vote ambassadors serving as aides, 15 and younger. We had 11,000 community service hours provided by these students, and we reached out to 650 community events. Operations, voter satisfaction, 89.9% of the voters polled during early voting found early voting center completely convenient. 93% plus of voters polled election day found their polling place completely convenient. Most voters responded with positive feedback saying thank you, great experience, fantastic, nothing needs to change. Polling place support program auditors from the League of Women Voters noted that although the turnout was heavy, most polling places were well laid out and operating smoothly. This is a combined effort of both operations as well as IT. Candidate filings, the public candidate interest was high. Our operations staff filed a record number of candidates, totaling 190 individuals. Public funding was implemented in the county for our county executive and county council candidates. 25 candidates were eligible to take part in this program. And while our office does not administer the program, we do have to work very closely with the Department of Finance section that does manage public campaign financing, and of course did a great job coordinating that information back and forth. Our supply and warehouse, during the general election, Ryan White managed an unprecedented number of ballots to accommodate the projected turnout. There were 919,000 ballots. It was a 3-page ballot. I don't think I'll ever forget that, equating to 2.75 million pieces of paper. Ryan, Chris, Jessica, Michelle, several other staff, and the Department of General Services responded quickly when we discovered the perforation error by the printer, making sure that to minimize the stub issue at the polls, and proving to the state that ballot distribution and accounting processes do not need a ballot stub. And we are going back to the state to get rid of them. 3 independent supply verifications were performed, one by the supply warehouse manager, one by one of the BOE administrators, which is myself, Chris, or Allison, to ensure all polling place supplies were furnished and the appropriate materials for conducting the election. We also strengthened our supply depots for roamers across the county for greater and quicker responsiveness in the precincts. We had 2, besides our location, we had 2 other locations, and we're looking at that and maybe adding a 4th. Call center, Jessica, Lolita, and Bobby, their teams consolidated the part of the call center that handles voter calls into the front office of this election, handling the calls more efficiently and cost effective for the volume of calls that we had for this election. Eric Olson has taken over our help desk and led the team in improving procedures for taking and tracking calls and made sure we knew what was going on out there during the election that turned out to be the fourth highest turnout. Polling places. In June of 2018, there were an unparalleled number of changes in locations because of the summer construction and maintenance project. However, to ensure voters were provided convenient alternate locations within the communities, staff worked diligently to acquire adequate temporary buildings. And though the changes presented significant challenge, we minimized confusion for voters through multiple voter notification initiatives, including mail and using local community efforts. We included postcard mailings in between the time we sent out the voter notification card and the sample ballot, plus information on how to travel there. Chris led the way in creating new solutions for accessibility complaints reported during the primary. Staff members assessed the problems, mediated the issues, and implemented a plan to create rest areas for individuals with mobility constraints, and we received positive feedback. And we also received compliments from the Montgomery County ADA compliance officer who visited early voting during the general election. She found the location welcoming and compliant with ADA standards. Because of state contract change, BOE worked with a new moving contract. However, the equipment delivery went extremely well, with the equipment being delivered properly. Voting and absentee services. Voting was offered 21 days. This has been a program that's been in place since Mary Ann was president. We're open weekends here at the office as well as early voting and election day. We're the only county in the state of Maryland that remains open for 21 days prior to the election. We are also the only county in the state that has a mail drop for absentee or voter registration documents that allows for 24-hour access. So if you don't want to use a stamp, we've got a box here and we don't need to put a stamp on it. During the recount, we were complimented and remained in positive feedback because it was transparent and well organized. Certification was timely and the documents were available for the board attorney and the candidate representatives on a timely basis. Our manual audit verified the certified election results. Lessons learned, wait times. We had 236 polling locations across the county, not counting the early voting sites. 76% of them had a wait time of less than 30 minutes. 45 or 19% had a wait time during peak periods of 35 to 55 minutes, and 12 precincts had wait time exceeding 1 hour. The issues identified were not similar. We have already ordered new equipment, additional equipment rather, and will adjust our election judge allocation to have more workers present when we need them. Staff will continue to delve into addressing the issues of these wait times. Election judges. We will continue to work to improve our standby ranks and minimize our response time to deploy election judges to the polling places, particularly on election day, and to increase our baseline personnel requirements, particularly for those busier precincts. We will adjust staffing to include greeters to sort out our non-resident voters into a provisional voting area to prevent events such as what happened at Fraser on election day. And we believe that this is necessary at all locations that serve as an early voting center or near an early voting center, because they all had similar issues of people showing up and creating unnecessary long lines. Communication. We will focus our messaging for 2020 to try to persuade voters on election day to vote at their assigned polling place. We will focus on how we can improve our messaging to voters who request an absentee ballot, then decide to vote on election day. Unfortunately, they then become a provisional voter, which is, once again, takes the longest time to vote. This may be possible with a separate mailing or more information with the ballot, or maybe we need to include it in the sample ballot. But this is one of the communication pieces that staff will be discussing. We also want to emphasize these messages in the sample ballot. And I also want to give credit to Eric at this point, because one of the things that he had in the primary ballot, sample ballot, talked about, make a plan to vote. And I think that if it's necessary, if we have to go another 4 pages, we should do something that includes that kind of information. Equipment deployment. Ballot marking devices are underutilized on election day. They're actually underutilized, period. Staff deployed more ballot marking devices exceeding the directives of the state board. We just started sending them out and ignoring what the requirements.
Is that what the brouhaha is about
Yeah.
with you up at the state board? Or that's
No,
it's
that's
not in the
different
different
one. This is a different
But
brouhaha.
this do it, all right.
So this needs to change as well as the process to allow voters to use it. Certification for improvements to this device have been supposedly projected for September of 2019. But realistically, we know from this last election at Mid-County and Praisner, and I can't remember the third location, we're only supposed to have 2 ballot marking devices at these early voting sites, and we were deploying 6 and 8. And there's absolutely, and we need to improve the language on how to utilize it, because Kevin and I have sat there and listened to the judge read it. It's too long. It has to change. But we do believe that
off-putting.
Huh?
It's off-putting.
It is off-putting.
Yeah.
So we'd like to do that. We will increase the amount of equipment for the election cycle, the 200s, the poll books, the printers, cards, and peripherals. The downside to this increase in equipment is where are we going to put it? We're running out of space downstairs. I've already advised Ryan that if there's paper that we can, for instance, we have to hold the ballots for 22 months. Maybe what we need to do is to rent someplace else. But
Isn't that amazing that we just got this new
but you have
spot?
to store. Yeah.
Have we budgeted for this additional equipment?
Yes, we have the money for this, what I ordered, but not what the 125,000. But the thing is, even if we do get additional equipment, the question is, where are these black cards going to go? Where is the additional scanners? Where would the poll books go? And all of these things are going to have to be sorted through.
If you get rid of the ballots, all of the ballots that we have here, the old ones, and we have to store, would there be enough space?
Well, that's the question.
That's how you stack them.
Yeah, that's how high you stack them. We'll have to get maybe another forklift. We will explore options for increasing the speed of delivery when the voting equipment goes down. The state's requirement on how to handle replacement equipment, along with the geography of our county, makes it very, very difficult to replace equipment quickly. So even with the standby emergency placard that we tried to use, it still was not fast enough. And we will also work to improve the Chief Judge's understanding of how to use that emergency bypass bin. Elections by the number. The chart is pretty much self-explanatory. It tells you how many, on one page it tells you the turnout. Yellow is election day, early voting is blue, absentee, purple, and provisional is green. On the next page you have the absentee ballots. I know that the board is concerned about how what we mail out, what we get back, what's not returned, the number of provisionals that flip into, absentees that flip into into provisional, and then the ones that are too late. And this gives you an idea of what the numbers are in the past. You have a great team on staff, and I want to say a few things to highlight the qualifications and activities of some of the staff. The Board of Elections staff is the hardest working staff I've had the pleasure to lead, and have continuously stepped up to every challenge faced in the 2018 election cycle, and there were several. We have 2 nationally certified election registration administrators, myself and Roberto, and we're going to double that to 4 with Chris and Leslie about to receive their certification. We have 4 more employees that have begun the program. This is a program through Election Center and Auburn University, which has helped build the professionalism and information sharing across this nation of election administrators, small and large. The U.S. Election Assistance Commission, as I mentioned earlier, I've been asked to serve and am serving on this disaster preparedness recovery. And how did I get qualified? Because I survived the Beltway sniper and Hurricane Sandy experience. Deputy Director Allison McLaughlin is the Vice Chair of the Election Administration Committee for the National Association of Counties, NACO. She's on the member program and represents them on the Board of Advisors to the U.S. Election Commission. She will be going to their annual meeting in Salt Lake City to represent us and election administrators, and where they'll be voting on the next generation of the voting equipment standards. Last year, she authored and passed a resolution on usability and language access for ballot marking devices, and she also represents Montgomery County in the large county group with the Bipartisan Policy Center that meets once a year to discuss best practices. She served as the Vice Chair of the Mayo Association of Election Officials and the Co-Chair of the Metropolitan COG election officials. Janet Ross was selected and represents large jurisdictions at the National Election Security Summit in St. Louis. She will be at the Mayo Conference working with the State Board on tabletop exercise for the development of internal planning. Janet is not only a former trainer, but she understands the people side of elections, and she has a long career with Verizon and has brought solid project management skills to her position here. And it's easy to take Leslie Wood's training program for granted until you see how election workers are trained in other parts of the county or in the country. Our class sizes are nearly unheard of elsewhere, and we're not aware of any jurisdiction that is as systematic and has a robust process for evaluating poll worker preferences. Leslie's program has won the Montgomery County Board of Elections a national award last year, and we're known for going it alone and doing things our way, but she does work closely with the state during implementation of new voting equipment to revamp the statewide training and to bring other counties along using our model to improve programs. In a recent election in Chicago, they had one precinct with not one poll worker showing up to open the polls. The vetting process developed by Leslie and her team not only make all the legal requirements, but does a great job of making sure we open our polls on time. Our program is designed for the potential poll worker to understand the commitment they're making in advance. Jessica White Newby is also quickly becoming a state and national leader. She's serving in the chair as the voter registration committee for the Maryland Association of Election Officials and as the Mayo State Regulatory Review Committee. And as a person who sat on that committee before, I bless her. She has served on the National Election Center Postal Task Force and is flying to Indianapolis next month to help represent election administrators at the National Postal Forum because we want our mail delivered. She's also served as co-chair of the COG, Metropolitan COG Elections Committee, and she's working with us to get rid of that ballot stuff, which I consider a serious flaw to the customer service for voting. Chris Zizit is our emergency management specialist and has attended the latest training in emergency management for the purpose to coordinate the protection of many or all of our many early voting centers and polling places. While the board may see her more on the operations role, she is the liaison and works extensively in the background with public safety in planning for that emergency. And it's a detailed, extensive process. Eric Olson is our newest hire at the Board of Elections, and in this time he's improved our Election Day help desk, streamlining several processes. He's revamped the written materials, including the sample ballot, and will continue to improve upon this vehicle as an educational piece. He is the co-chair of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Election Officials Committee and has run a national program called Erase the Line, coordinating efforts by counties across the country to measure and reduce wait times at the polls. When he worked at the D.C. Board of Elections, when he was working at D.C., He's been bringing his expertise to that issue here in Montgomery County in recent months, and has been working with myself and our operations team to analyze lines and wait times and review equipment allocations. I expect board members and the new board members to see good things in the 2020 presidential election. Last but not least, Humberto Zelaya, Dr. Z, is a local celebrity here in Montgomery County. He's not only the vice president of a union, he's also the president of the Montgomery County Hispanic Employees. He's been on both the board and outreach committee for Mayo. His future program is one of the largest youth poll worker programs in the county, and has won several awards, and is featured as a civic engagement toolkit in the Center for Civic Design. This year it won the Cleary Award through the U.S. Election Commission. He testified in Annapolis for the first time and will be speaking at IGO in Houston in August, this summer, regarding the program. I'm sure I forgot someone on the staff that probably has done something really super wonderful, and I will tell you about them in the future. But I think it's important that you know you have a fabulous and hardworking, great team here at the Board of Elections. So I just also want to say Jim, Marianne, Alex, David, Naheed, if she were here, Jackie, and Alan. The staff worked really, really hard to make sure that the election went off as well. We regret that there were wait times in those 12 precincts, and considering that we had some anomalies that probably weren't really easy to project, we thought the election went well. Thank you.
All right. Stepping in temporarily for Mr. Shallak as acting president, I think the next item on our agenda under old business is the update on the Tacoma Park Memorandum of Understanding. Is that something for Mr. Karpinski to address?
Yes. Basically what has happened is we met with the city of Tacoma Park, I think in January, to discuss the possibility they are legally allowed to conduct their elections simultaneously with the Board of Elections. So what we would like to suggest is Chris has worked with the city of Tacoma Park. We've identified the various polling places, and I think now it's time for Kevin and to be involved with the city and nail this down. The uniqueness of the city of Tacoma Park is the fact that they have non-citizens that are allowed to vote. So obviously
in their municipal elections.
In their municipal elections.
Which this time will be coincident in time with our federal election.
And they also let 16-year-olders, don't they?
They
Yes.
Yes. So there's a lot of safeguards that we need to build into this process, and that is why I am asking the board to allow us to initiate the discussion between the board attorney and the city of Tacoma Park. Right now, the city of Tacoma Park is probably going to conduct their election, but I cannot commit to this using paper. And we have informed them that because of the poll book situation, they're going to have to either use paper precinct registers, or they will need to look to find their own vendor for a poll book.
And so I have been contacted by their city attorney, Ken Sigmund, who I've known for a long time. And I told him that really until some of the logistics have been worked out by Chris and our team and Tacoma Park's staff, that really there was no need for us to start drafting an MOU. But once we get those particulars ironed out, then we'll need to go ahead and do an MOU and then work on some of the logistics of having additional people to make sure that we have individuals who are eligible to vote in both elections, knowing that they can go from one room to another, and if you're not eligible to vote in our elections, that they're being directed simply to the room where they can vote for the municipal election.
So I guess the purpose of such an MOU would be to set up and formalize, you'd have to have like a separation, essentially two different rooms or polling places for people who want to vote in one or both elections.
Correct.
Who are residents of that city.
Correct, and their obligation to get their own voting equipment.
Two more
And to go
questions.
ahead and pay for some of the staffing that's going to be needed to go ahead and have people there to do those things.
That was two more questions. I want to know what the financial arrangements are, and does this affect our judges' training? Do we have to train their judges? Do we have to have judges that are duly trained?
No, when they came before, this is your call, Jackie, a year or so ago, maybe it's been longer than that. It was actually the jump starter to getting the high school that we use as a polling place. Is it the Bosco? Yeah. They acknowledged they're going to have to pay all the additional costs for doing whatever needs to be.
And who figures that out? We figure that out.
No, they're not using our equipment, they're using paper. Right now, they're talking about using paper ballots because they do ranked choice voting. And so they're doing paper ballots. The ballots will be carried from wherever their polling place is to City Hall, and they're going, as I understand it, they're hand counting those results, which is what they did the last time, right?
But there would
Whatever
be,
they're doing, they're on their own.
there'll be a different
only thing
necessity
is
for
that-
security if that's the case also,
They will be-
obviously.
The
They
same
will
time and place.
be in the same location
Presidential general election.
during the presidential general election.
Kevin, you said Tacoma Park is paying for the high school?
No, and I'm saying is that when they first came to us, we were looking for a polling place in Tacoma Park. And I forget whether it was the mayor or it was some other elected official.
It's their chief police for their department.
Had suggested Don Bosco as a potential polling place, and was how we got in contact with the school to start using it as a polling place for us. That was well over a year and a half ago, right, Chris?
Yes.
But when they came to go ahead and do their presentation of why they wanted to move their election to the same time of the presidential general, was to try and get greater participation in their municipal elections. And obviously they were told right off the bat, it's not going to be a situation where you can have your elections in the same room as ours because of the way they do because of what's already been, they have 16-year-olds, they have individuals that aren't U.S. citizens, they do ranked choice voting. It's not a situation, although the law sort of contemplates you could do that, because of the uniqueness of their voting requirements, they would never be able to do that. So the decision then was they then were going to have to go back and get legislation passed to have their election moved to the date of the general election, which they have now done. And now it's just a matter of working out the logistics of having them in one room and then having...
And signs,
Yeah, well, that's part of it,
lots
yeah.
of signs
Right.
that they pay for.
We're not paying for the city of Tacoma Park. That's what the development of the MOU. Poolsville has their election on general election day, but they hold it in City Hall of Poolsville. So and the only difference is that now we're going to share space in the building, and their intent is to improve voter turnout.
Are we sharing space or just we're in the same building?
We're in the same building, but that's why
Right.
I'm asking for that discussion so that Chris can do what she needs to do, so that Kevin needs to, move this process forward.
But all we're doing is coming up with a plan for how to occupy different rooms in the same building on election day.
Except we have this problem is it Bosco?
It's Don Bosco.
We're going to have to put up some sort of
Oh,
temporary
they've
wall.
got a couple of locations, is that?
They don't have two rooms.
They don't at Bosco, does
One
it?
big
They
room.
don't have separate rooms for us.
Mary Ann's question is, how many polling places?
How many
are there gonna
polling
be?
places are we
They're gonna
talking
be 5
about?
of them.
There's 5, and 3 of them are schools. So what the suggestion has been that they could possibly reserve the media center in those schools. We'd be in either the cafeteria or the all-purpose room, and then Tacoma Park would vote in the media center.
So Chris, how many of those are public schools?
All of them except Don Bosco.
Okay, so 4 of them we have as a matter of right, as a matter of law, we have the right to use on election day.
Okay.
And Don Bosco will be.
Will people then, those who are citizens and are 18 and older, will they then go into the other room to vote for the presidential?
Yes, they'll have to
So
go
they-
to 2 spots.
Pardon me?
They'll have to go 2 spots.
They'll have to go to 2. And do we envision any sort of problem with people wanting to go and vote in this other room, our room, so to speak, that shouldn't be there?
Well, and they can try, but their name will not be in the poll book, and so they'll immediately be sent to a provisional voting place.
You can anticipate there will be an uptick in provisional applications.
So we will need probably additional staff there just to deal with this situation, since it'll be unique and new and all that.
Additional security.
And by Tacoma Park's estimate, the discrepancy between the number of registered voters that would be countywide eligible and just Tacoma Park eligible is less than 100, over 5 polling places.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they're not anticipating a large number of people that would need to be, and they plan their own communication campaign to those individuals directly.
So would it be appropriate to consider a motion to authorize the Board of
Yes.
Council? So do I have a motion to authorize the Board Council to initiate discussions with the city attorney at Tacoma Park on a drafting of a
So moved.
memorandum of understanding?
I second.
Is there further debate? If not, all those in favor of the motion will vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed will vote no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the ayes do have it. The motion carries.
And one assumes we'll discuss this further before the MOU is signed.
Okay. Next one is the minutes proposal. Janet has a short presentation.
Okay, this is going to be really quick. So we thought we would give you a background on the process that Lisa basically goes through before the minutes are approved. Okay, I'm not going to read everything. The first 2 bullet points are for the agenda. Then after the board meeting, the next 3 bullet points are what we do for the audio tape. That's our current process. Okay, then the next this is the 8 steps we go through to do the minutes. Okay, so with your proposal,
Give us a chance to read it.
I'm
Okay.
not going to go anywhere.
That's just if we don't have it.
Yeah.
You want to go back a slide, beginning?
You need to read that one?
No, I'm good. But I have a question on number 3.
Yeah, how many?
Yeah, who on staff reviews the minutes?
And I need to defer to Lisa. That's a question for her.
That would be Margaret or Allison, depending on the workload.
So there's just one
Just
person
one-
after
One
you?
person?
Because I know it used to be multiple hands on.
And it's either myself or Allison, and then once we finalize it, we send it up to Kevin to make sure that.
I
there
thought
was-
Kevin. yeah.
Okay, so it's one person here plus, Kevin's not reflected on the slide, but it's Kevin as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then the new process. I left the old numbering just so you can see where the new process will fit in. So somebody would have to listen to the audio tape to get the time and marks for the agenda.
Right.
Okay, then we would have to update the agenda to add the time and marks. And then a revised agenda will be forwarded to my team to activate the links. Then we would give it back to Lisa to make sure we didn't forget a link. Because sometimes you think you activated it and you didn't.
Excuse me.
Yes.
How do you activate the timing mark links?
I'm going to show you in a
Okay.
minute. Okay? And then once Lisa verifies everything, she sends it back to us and we post it. And this is still 72 hours after board meeting. So we're saying by Thursday evening, close of business, we will have the audio up after the board meeting.
So it'll be up, and
The agenda will be up with the
the
timing
agenda will be up,
marks. With the timing marks.
and the timing marks where somebody can just click on it, and they'll be sent right to that
Right.
part of the audio.
Now, what did you say is the current timing for when the audio gets on the website?
72.
So it's the same?
Same.
So there'll be hyperlinks.
Right.
Yeah, the hyperlinks.
Right.
Well, and the expectation is that during the election cycle.
Oh yeah, during the election,
This would probably
sometimes
take
this
longer.
may take longer because the
Based
person
on-
that does the YouTube
I
formatting.
understand, may have other things to do.
Yeah, like count the bell.
Okay, and then I left it the same, and then this will be, we will just take the time and marks off the agenda, add it to the minutes where they belong.
Can you back up, please?
Mhm.
Just want to read the rest of it.
It's in essence the same process when
I'm just
preparing the
adding
agenda
where-
where
Right.
I recommend
Right,
it, they go
okay.
reviewed,
Right, understood.
they're sent to someone else, they send them back to me, send
Right.
them to IT.
Right, okay.
Good.
Okay, and then, again, we will add the time and mark links, send it back to get tested, make sure we activated everything, then it comes back to us, and then within 24 hours, we post. Whenever we get a document, we have 24 hours to get it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a portion of one of the minutes I just took, and I added a timer link to it, timer mark. So if you just click on it, it opens up the audio, and it goes right to 5202 is what I said.
That's brilliant.
Terrific.
That is
Yay!
Throw that away.
Okay? And that's it.
That's wonderful, Janet.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank
Janet,
you.
you've done a good
Yes,
job with that.
beautiful.
Thank you very much. Very much. You did it quickly, and I appreciate it very much. I appreciate the League of Women's Voters bringing it to ahead so Mary and I could get cracking on this. Margaret, thank you for sending it all in motion. I think that's going to be a wonderful addition.
Yeah, I think.
Do we need a motion saying let's do this, or can we just
You
do it?
You do need a motion because there was no motion at the last meeting, even though you both presented it. And then I have one proposed amendment.
All right, I'd like to move, what do you say, I make a motion?
Did you make the
One
motion?
for all, and one's correct.
So the motion would be on, I think, what we
So you presented last month.
presented last month, and yes, all the board received it. And what Janet displayed is sort of an addition to it because it brought the technical aspect in that people won't have to just go searching.
Right.
They can click on it and immediately go. So I
Mary Ann,
don't
would
know.
this be sort of the text of your motion, I guess?
This is
yeah.
the text of it, yes, with the addition that now this is all simplified by simply being able to click on the timing and be connected to the audio. So I'd like to move that we accept this motion with this automation for the minutes.
All right.
And move forward.
A motion is on the floor, and just for clarity, it is the text in all of our packets that bears the heading Automating Board of Election Minutes. This is Mrs. Keith's motion. Is there any debate?
And did you say with
We need a
addition
second.
to? With I did second it.
Oh.
With addition, with Janet's addition. And Janet, I want to thank you again. I know you didn't when I called you, I know you had to do some research, and I appreciate it. With the addition that Janet just
Yes,
presented
with
to
the
us.
addition of Janet's,
I guess someone has to come up with language.
we will have to come up with the
say what that
language.
means. But basically, it's to add the links to the timing marks that are part of this motion.
Correct. So,
So I guess your motion then, Mary Ann, would be the text that you have here in our packet, but as facilitated by the technical means that Mrs. Ross
as
described for
presented
us
by, yes.
just a few minutes ago. All right?
Is that appropriate for a motion to be worded that way?
I think
That's,
so.
that's perfect.
So is there further debate on the motion? David?
Having had a chance to review it and also having had a chance to just see this presentation, I think that the timing marks and both the inclusion of the times on the agenda and the inclusion of the times in the minutes, and now the added extra wrinkle of being able to go straight to the recording will be a huge benefit to people, and I'm very much in favor of that. What I would like to propose is an amendment to number 5. And that amendment is that rather than deciding today how the minutes would be prepared based on a system that we haven't really had a chance to test yet, and also to examine more closely what other bodies do, and I've discussed this with Jim in advance, I would move to amend number 5 so that it would read that the board president will appoint a 2-person committee, including 1 majority member and 1 minority member of the board, to look at how the minutes are handled by other public bodies who make available recordings of their proceedings, and report back to the full board at the July meeting.
David, you got
I second that motion.
about 5. Well, we've got a motion on the floor.
No, this is an amendment.
An amendment.
You got about 5 sets of minutes.
I'm seconding the
last
motion.
time, because Margaret gave them to us. We all had them.
We
Other
all had
boards
them
of
with about
election.
10 seconds notice, and none of them were Montgomery County bodies. And
You're talking about Montgomery County. You did not
none of
stipulate
them,
that.
and none of them explained other aspects of how those bodies keep track of what needs to be followed up upon. My main concern about the minutes is that there be a systematic way for the board to have easy access to what things any of us, whether board members, attorney, election director, other staff, are supposed to follow up upon after the board meetings.
That's not listed now.
No, it's not. What I'm suggesting, and it's really not a radical suggestion, is I'm just suggesting that rather than making a statement that says how the minutes are going to be adjusted to deal with a change that we are just now implementing, haven't implemented it yet, that we take some time to consider what is required to be included in the minutes, what we want to be included in the minutes, and what can be dispensed with. And since you have some members of the board who feel differently than others about what should be included in the minutes, my hope is that by going through this process, that we could come up with something that would be a consensus opinion of everyone, including our new board members who don't have an opportunity to weigh in here. We're talking about adopting something that would affect them, including our absent board members. We have 2 members of the board not currently sitting at the table. I don't know when Jim is coming back. I know Jim is told me he's comfortable with my proposal. And the idea would be, I'm not talking about a long period of time, I'm talking about July. And my thought being that there may be a number of things that have already been lined up for June because of things that have been waiting for the new board. We would be adopting immediately items 1 through 4. We would implement those right away, starting with the minutes, and the agenda for today's meeting. But we would take a look before we leave as far as what the minutes would look like otherwise. And I'm hoping as part of that to be able to, like I said, get to a point where we can reach consensus, because without consensus, individual members, we can't stop individual members from making suggestions. Individual members make suggestions. If everyone has some buy-in into the process, then we're much more likely to be able to.
And you're saying now you don't feel as though everybody said you haven't had buy-ins. This is why you're proposing this.
I'm proposing this because I believe that more research has to be done by board members about how other bodies handle their minutes in circumstances where recordings have been made.
So you agree with me? All right.
Okay. And may I speak to the motion that David made?
Al.
Yeah, I think we probably all agree on 1 through 4, and we probably voted that today.
That's what I'm only amending number 5.
Right.
Okay.
Let me
yeah,
finish.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can all agree on 1 through 4, and I agree with David's motion on because Jim's not here. He's got a call from a magistrate to talk about a client matter, and because Nahid not here, and we've got 2 new members of the board coming up soon. These are additional reasons why we should see how the mechanism that Janice showed us how it could work, see how it works, and then we can see what do we do going forward. I'll just make one comment regarding what Jackie said. The 3 minutes I saw at the last meeting were of meetings that were about an hour each. Ours are around 3 hours, and so it would make sense that there would be a lot shorter minutes than ours. But anyway, I speak in favor of his motion, and hopefully we can agree to postpone number 5.
Mary Ann.
Well, let me just say, as the co-maker of the motion and co-instigator of trying to put something together to deal with the minutes that we've all been kicking around for a couple of years, I think. The purpose of 1 through 4 was certainly meant to shorten the overall written minutes, that they wouldn't have to have the level of detail that they've had in the past. However, I think David certainly makes a legitimate point when he spoke about the need to follow up that comes out of the minutes, or comes out of the meeting and is reflected in the minutes and should be reflected in the minutes. And it seems to me you could have something simply done, which is something we talked about back on my first term on the board here, action items, where you would list it under such a heading, the action items that came out of that meeting. Spelling out what it is, when it's due, if it's a letter that the council's going to prepare, or somebody's going to testify at a hearing, or whatever it is. I think it could be that simple.
I agree with you. I think I think that's.
And I'd
necessary.
certainly be happy to add that as a part of this overall, that the written minutes should contain a section of action items to be followed up on, clearly spelled out. But I'm not sure what you're going to gain by looking at additional minutes that other boards do.
Well, let me just speak to that in a couple of different ways. First of all, the board was complimented today by the League of Women Voters for putting things out in advance and getting comment. And while we may think that we are the only ones who listen to our recordings of our meetings, there are other people who listen to the recordings of our meetings, and their feedback would be very helpful for us for us moving forward. Most of the feedback that I get is how difficult it is to maneuver on the recordings.
Well, I think
And,
we've taken care of that.
well, I hope we have. Usually when you do something like this, you do want to evaluate it before you change the system that you have. You don't automatically assume that whatever you propose is going to do exactly what you want it to. I think it will. I'm in favor of it. I'm ready to vote for items 1 through 4. And I think it'll make a big difference. But I'd like to be able to convince others who do pay attention to our minutes that that's the case. I'd like to be able to hear their comments as to what they think would be helpful. I think the idea of having action items, I'm not even sure that we need to wait for the minutes to have them. But part of what I'm suggesting is that if we have a clear list of action items, that we may I may be satisfied, and I speak for only myself, but I may be satisfied to have much shorter minutes as long as those action items are made clear and are closely following what was actually said at the meeting. Some of you all may have seen that my comments on the minutes that we approved today included a number of action items that were left off the minutes. I think that is a very big problem. I think that those items, we should not have to, board members should not have to go back to listening to the recording. We're all busy people. We shouldn't have to go back to listen to the recording in order to know what did we say last month we wanted, the staff or the attorney or each other to do. I think it's quite possible that we could end up with substantially shorter minutes. I am not ready to make that case today.
David, I think we're all on the same. You ready?
Yeah.
We're all on the same page here. I think that I completely agree about the action items. I just think the faster we get acquainted, there's no reason it can't be tweaked along the way. Not at all. But kind of to put another committee together to look at it and
it's a short committee of 2 people. It'll probably end up being you and me. And it will not take long.
And I'll kill you before it's over.
Well, actually, I have
an extra added benefit of my motion.
Well, I have the chair has a question for Mr. David. David, do you see item 5 as necessarily committing the board to a specific length or type of minutes? I'm not sure I'm seeing that.
Well, it does not say shall. You and I are both attorneys, and it certainly does not. It does not specify that. It says that they can't. It does give guidelines that I'm not ready to support. And certainly, if we're going to give guidelines, we would not use words like probably. We would, I would think that we would want to give bigger guidelines. I know that one of the issues for preparing the minutes is always figuring out what should be included and what shouldn't be included. And we don't make it easy necessarily because our conversations are not necessarily linear. And we also, we each may have different things that we think are the most important things that happened at a particular meeting. I do think that, to answer your question, Alex, I do not see it as being a stringent limitation, but I also don't see any need for there to be a guidance given now at the very last meeting of this board in order to say what the minutes in the future should be for a system that we have not implemented yet and that we haven't gotten any feedback yet either from the public or from 4 of the people who are going to serve on the next board. So to me, that is not, yes, I have no doubt that if we were to take a vote right now, you could pass number 5, and that's your business. I won't be voting for it. I personally was trying to find a way to end up with a consensus behind what it is that we do, and I think this is the best way to get there.
I don't have any problem accepting your amendment. I would like, if you could include in it the idea of the action items. I'd like to see that spelled out because I think that would be overall very helpful to this process.
Okay.
Well, and David, for the benefit of Mr. Shalek, who is now...
No, I appreciate it. I apologize. I had to appear before a judge on a hearing by phone. But I apologize.
David, could you briefly summarize your amendment? We have on the floor, Mr. President, a motion that was made by Mrs. Keefe and seconded by Mrs. Phillips that coincides with this text called Automating Board of Election Minutes.
Right.
As to be facilitated by the presentation that Janet Ross gave about how to facilitate it from an IT perspective.
Are you familiar with what Janet was
Yes.
doing? Okay, good.
And so when the motion was made and seconded and was opened up for debate, Mr. Naaman made an amendment, and we're debating his amendment right now, and I thought for your benefit he might explain the
thanks.
amendment to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, yes. My amendment was that we amend number 5 on the document that Mary Ann and Jackie moved.
You accept the four, the
I
top
accept,
four?
I accept the top 4. And we added to the top 4, although we didn't add specific language, that we want to implement the links to the recording that Janet just explained to us. Are you working on it, or you're already able to do it?
Yes,
It's a
she
question
did it.
It's just a question of adding it into the process. But I also added that the board president would appoint a 2-person committee, including 1 majority member and 1 minority member of the board, to look at how the minutes are handled by other public bodies who make available recordings of their proceedings, and report back to the full board at the July meeting. Now, what Mary Ann is just suggesting is that we add to that, and I don't know if you want that to be part of what the committee looks at, is how those public bodies handle action items. So we could say to look at how minutes and action items are handled by other public bodies who make recordings of or lists of action items are handled by other public bodies who make available recordings of their proceedings. The idea would be to see whether we could have a system where there would be a list of follow-ups that would closely follow what was said in the board meeting. And if we did have that, whether that would then result in being able to have the minutes. To me, that's one of the most important functions of the minutes, and it would then result in the minutes being able to be shorter.
Well, I agree with that. When I was on the Montgomery County Central Committee, Gabe Albernoz, when he was the chair, is now a member of the County Council, he had action items at the end of every meeting. He would say, you do this, I do this person does that, so everybody knew what their roles were.
Nobody's against that. That's already been agreed on. Nobody's against that.
Well, Jim has a chance to say what he thinks.
Right.
No, I mean,
I just wanted to know where we are on it.
Yeah.
I mean, would you and Alan, and David?
Oh, you all have already talked about this. Sure.
Yeah.
I told you
David
that
and
Jim and I had already talked about it.
Yeah.
I did not say
I
that.
said it on the record.
Yeah. Would you be willing to do that, Jackie? With David?
Yes.
Oh, good. I mean, it sounds good to me.
But don't shoot him.
I beg your pardon?
Don't shoot him.
No, that's much too nice. You have to have a
He
slow
knows.
down.
He knows that.
Okay.
Slow down.
Sounds
We've gotten
Yeah, sounds good to me. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's move on.
Was there a motion?
Yeah,
Well,
the
there is
So
a-
it's a
there is an
motion
amended
as
motion.
amended.
Two
No. At the
motions.
moment, the motion is the amendment that I believe. Unless you're saying you just want to agree to that. I mean, I don't know whether you can agree to it by unanimous consent. Otherwise, you vote on the amendment. Then you vote on the motion.
The current item being debated
Is the amendment.
Mr. Naaman's amendment to Mrs. Keefe.
Do we need a vote on that?
Right.
All right. Is motion?
He made the
Motion
motion,
second.
it was seconded.
Yeah.
Okay.
We discussed it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed?
Now
Okay.
the motion.
Okay. Now the amended
On the
motion.
floor.
Okay. Is there a motion for that?
Yes.
All right.
Um,
Mary Ann moved it.
I had
Jackie
moved
seconded
it, seconded, and it just got amended, so
Right,
it would
right.
be as the amended motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Sounds good. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah.
Now,
So we are at new business.
Yes. Well, Mayo. You want to do Mayo first?
Mayo.
Let's do the acknowledgement.
Oh, okay.
I think the only thing for Mayo is just, I think we can follow up totally on that by email. It's just confirming who's going. So we can do that by email, I think.
I'd actually like to raise an issue to Mayo and who's going. First of all, I was very impressed with, maybe the first time ever, with the Mayo agenda. I think it's a really good agenda with a lot of important items on it. And I was a little surprised.
Hold on. We'll go back.
Do you want to pass?
She should finish.
Let her finish her
Let her
sentence.
finish. All right.
I'm more than surprised. I was a little surprised to be summarily dismissed from the Mayo meeting, if you will, as my colleague Alex was, in just simply seeing an email go out saying that staff needed to know who of the returning board members would be attending Mayo, because of course in its crazy setting of the timing of Mayo, they keep moving it around back and forth all the time. It falls during the tenure that Alex and I are still board members. It's a moot question in terms of me, because as you all know, I'm going to be out of town, out of the country at that time, so I wouldn't be attending. But I think it would be an excellent meeting to have the new board members be able to attend. It's just within a matter of weeks as to when they, take office. And because, as I say, I'm impressed with the items on the agenda that are important. I think it'll give them a real, head start to some of the burning issues that are going to be dealt with for the 2020 election. And so I'd like to suggest that you include inviting the new board members to that.
And I agree with her, Jim. I think that should be done.
Well, is there...
Unfortunately, they are not board members, and they will not be board members until June 3rd. And I did go to my superior, Fariba Kasimi, and explain to her the situation. And the policy is for the county is that if you have less than 1 year, if you go to a conference, you have to repay the county. And if you're not, then I explained to her that they do not take office until June 3rd, and that they do have a mandatory biennial meeting that they must attend in September. They are not going. The county will not pick up the tab for their attendance.
Are we a county agency, Kevin? Can the county tell us not to spend our money on our new board members? I mean,
They're not a board member.
No, it sounds like you're saying they're not going to pay for them in September.
They will pay for them.
No, in September they'll still be less than a year.
No, they will have more than 1 year.
No, they won't. They will take office in June, and the meeting will be in September. Are you talking September of 2020 or September of 2019?
I'm talking that Alex and Mary Ann do not have 1 more year of service.
Oh, it's 1 year remaining.
You're saying if someone has less than a year remaining.
Right.
Yes, if I go to a conference and let's say I retire tomorrow. Let's say I went to Memphis, Tennessee to do that presentation, and I retired tomorrow. I'd have to reimburse the county.
All right, but what about the new ones coming in?
The new ones are not members of the board until June 3rd.
We know that.
Who is preventing them? Does Mayo say that they cannot attend?
No, the county is not paying for that.
If they wanted to pay their own way, would Mayo be all right with them attending?
If they want to pay on their own, yes, Mayo would.
I want to go back to David's question.
I don't think that the last Mayo meeting, they were at the height. This was a discussion topic because they were almost closed to additional attendees because of the reservations.
Because of capacity?
Right. And there was a discussion about membership and who would be permitted outside of membership.
Right, but on the other hand, we're sending a limited sampling of our board because we have a number of people who aren't returning and others who aren't able to go.
I mean, what is it
But I
called?
think what Jessica's saying is those that will be going are Mayo members.
That's why they were limiting the outside
All of you are Mayo members.
registrations.
Right.
For
They are
people who
not
aren't yet
Mayo members.
because
What does it cost to
There was
send
a
one
lot
of
of
those?
municipalities and such who asked to attend as well. And so they've been
you're really talking about one night of a hotel room, because it's one day of a meeting, but you would stay either go the night before, and then it's 2-3 meals.
How much does it cost to send one of those?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know.
I go back to David's question. Are we considered the county agency under these regulations?
Well, the Board of Elections is required to comply with the county's procurement requirements.
Yeah. And that would be, this is part of
their
it.
money
Okay.
that's being spent.
Yeah, I think the timing is unfortunate. I didn't realize there was a mandatory meeting in September, which is good, obviously, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for outgoing members to go to this, but it certainly could make a lot of sense for the incoming ones if the conference had been scheduled just weeks later.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see them go, but you're saying that we'd be in violation of county procurement?
So retiring council members before this last election couldn't use county travel in their last year in office?
I can't speak to that. I went to my superior,
Who's that?
Fariba.
And who's she?
She's a CAO.
Deputy CAO.
Okay.
And said,
Does that sound like something you've heard?
I wouldn't have gotten to that.
Huh?
I wouldn't have gotten to that level of line item, but it's a budget issue.
Yeah, but it's we're moving. We had this discussion earlier. We move money around all the time.
but they're not board members. They're not board members until June 3rd.
Right. But
They are duly appointed by the governor and seconded by the Senate. They've probably gotten their little certificate.
not quite yet.
I got a letter.
Got a letter.
Yeah, got a letter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
Kevin, you think it would be
very short-sighted.
Can we say they're temporary employees?
They're not employees. We're not employees.
Kevin,
Well, I mean, here's the bottom line. Is Margaret has asked whether the county's going to pay for it. The county said they're not going to pay for it. And I would not want to put the board members, the incoming board members, in the situation where they're then told by the county that they need to go ahead and reimburse it, or they're not going to pay for it.
Right.
And this is one of those situations where, quite frankly, I don't understand the timing of Mayo.
No.
Why on God's green earth you'd schedule it for the third week of May when you know you're going to have a turnover on board members, and you could have had this the second week of June.
I suspect there's a difference in the price in
Of the
Ocean City
hotel.
between before Memorial Day and after.
I bet it is.
But they've done it before in June, hasn't it been June before?
I don't
But Kevin, you believe the new members can pay their own way?
I don't know, because you do need to become a member of Mayo, which you all do become when you become a member of the Board of Elections. If Mayo has taken the position that they are not going to allow people that are not Mayo members, then Mayo may very well be of the mindset that until you become a board member and you're a Mayo member, you're not entitled to.
Right. Well,
I think it's very unfortunate too, because I think the incoming board members would benefit from it greatly.
Very.
And it would save our staff time in orientation for them, because a lot of what they would learn at this meeting is going to have to be taught to them some other way.
I don't disagree at all.
Well, it's unfortunate, but I think we have to follow Kevin's advice. That's that.
Okay.
I
Do
tried.
we have an attendance though? Jim, you said you're going.
Yeah, I'm going.
And
Wait.
David, I have your dates.
Well, the first night is the 21st?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll be there by that. So I'm going to stay the 21st and 22nd.
Checking out the 23rd.
That's when we all check out.
Okay.
Because that's the checkout
Well,
day.
some are checking in and checking out differently, but if your request is for the 21st or the 23rd.
Could you talk louder so I can hear you?
I'm sorry, I said others had different requests for check-in and check-out. Jim, if you would like to stay through the 21st or the 23rd, then that is doable.
Yeah.
Jackie, do you have your dates?
I'm probably going to go down Wednesday morning.
Okay. So
And
the 22nd?
Wait a minute, when are you going down, Tuesday?
Yeah, I'll get there
Tuesday in the
late
evening.
afternoon.
All right, maybe I'll go to Tuesday and then come back Wednesday. Is there anything Thursday morning?
Thursday
Yes.
is the open meetings discussion.
Yeah.
That's-
Oh, all right, then I'll go down,
That's-
I'll go down early Wednesday morning. I'm not gonna spend 2 nights.
Okay, so check in the 22nd, check out the 23rd. Okay,
And I'm going Wednesday morning, coming back Thursday evening.
got it.
Alan?
And he got to me and she said she didn't need a hotel. So I wanted to
22nd
know
and
that.
23rd, I'll be going.
Mhm. And Jim.
Okay. Now on to the acknowledgement of service for board members. I'm going to do Alex first.
I think Mike
yeah,
also
Mike,
has
Do
something.
you want to go first with the county executive?
Well, we'll go in the order.
Okay, let's go with county executive because he's the top dog.
Mr. Elrich had actually planned on being here,
Oh, wow.
but was summoned by the county council. So you came in, you were first, you're now second. Since we're doing Alex first, this is to Alexander Vincent in recognition and appreciation of your 4 years of loyal dedication and unwavering commitment to the voters of Montgomery County. You exemplify the values of integrity, responsibility, accuracy, respect for all, and a commitment to high customer service that the Board of Elections strives to deliver to the voters of Montgomery County. Thank you and best wishes, and it was signed by Mark Elrich, County Executive, on May 30th, 2019. Effective as of May 30th, 2019.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Realize
Yeah.
on a personal note, Alex, I've really enjoyed your perspectives in here. Sometimes they're different, but they were necessary, and I think they added a lot to the context of the proceedings of this board.
Thank you, Mike. That means a lot coming from you. Thank
Well,
you.
just I think we'll a few comments from the board. It was a pleasure working with Alex. We became good friends. He had a work change in the middle of or during our term, which caused him a lot of issues in terms of balancing a new job and the board. But he was always there for us, and I'm glad we became friends.
I am too, Jim. I value your friendship greatly and the opportunity that God has given for me to get to know you better and work with you and all of you, actually. So it's been a fantastic opportunity, and I will remember serving all of you with great fondness.
Anybody else have any harsh words?
Yeah, I do. I
That's
love
my
working
job.
with Alex. And he's been an intelligent, steady, calm, excellent voice, and I've loved sitting next to him. And his input has always, without fail, been important and been right on the mark.
Here, here.
Very kind. Thank you.
Well, and Alex, we're opposite sides of the aisle, so to speak, but it has been lovely knowing you, and hope I'll continue to see you at events of whatever. And you're a real gentleman, and I think you're soft-spoken, but very effective ways in bringing forth various issues really served us all very well. And
Well, Marianne, thank you so much. I hope that perhaps we will be the founding members of the Board of Elections Alumni
yes, I think we should start an alumni association.
Perhaps we'll have our own little convention.
I don't think I know of any others.
In Denmark,
Huh?
right?
Sure you do.
Well, they go
But not by an association.
they go
No.
back a way.
yeah.
Jerry Garson?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sam Stalin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Sam, yeah. Of course I do.
You know.
Dave, did you want?
Yeah, I was going to say that calm and soft-spoken were not the first words that occurred to me based on my relationship with Alex. But I would say that we've gotten to know each other well over the course of the 4 years and have gotten to have an excellent working relationship that I'm very happy about. And I will miss you and wish you well. I will say that as one who also tries to balance being a federal attorney with being a member of the board, that it's a lot easier to do either without the other. And I wish you well in your in your the career that's continuing. And I hope we'll stay in touch.
Well, thank you very much, David. I appreciate it very much.
I can add also, we disagree once in a while, but I've appreciated your sense of humor, your integrity, your responsibility. You approach things very seriously, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Al. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I have the pleasure of presenting you the Montgomery County Council Award to Alexander Vincent in recognition of the dedicated service since June of 2015 to the Montgomery County Board of Elections and to the people of Montgomery County. And this is signed by Nancy Navarro, the County Council President. And as the election director, staff is going to miss you. We really loved your deliberative style, and we're sorry about all the security on our systems that never successfully gets
All
your
those
material.
script attachments, right?
Yeah, all of those attachments. But you're going to be missed, and yes, we will be calling you for help on 2020. So.
All right.
The
Thank you so
election
much,
judge
Margaret.
staffing team wants to know which early voting site.
I always imagined I would be reincarnated as a center manager somewhere.
Alexander Vincent.
Oh, great.
And
Wonderful.
then as a gift.
Oh, thank you so much, Margaret.
Gifts.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, Margaret,
Oh,
we shake
thank
your
you.
hand. It's been an honor to be part of this board and to work with your good self. And I've just been amazed and impressed with your depth of knowledge, your experience, and your professionalism. This county has been lucky to have you as its ED for this long.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I hope you'll sign your children into future vote.
Yeah.
Well, that's an option too. Yes.
I'm looking, sorry.
Okay, Mary Ann. Michael.
Here's Mike.
Take that look at her.
I don't do well at these things. I usually cry and.
Not yet.
Marie Ann, on behalf of the county executive, we want to appreciate recognition and appreciation of your 8 years of loyal dedication and unwavering commitment to the voters of Montgomery County. You exemplify the values of integrity, responsibility, accuracy, respect for all, and commitment to high customer service that the Board of Elections strives to deliver to the voters of Montgomery County. Thank you and best wishes. Signed by Mark Elrich, but the best wishes aren't effective until May 30th.
I gotta live that long, right?
I think you'll be able to.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
On a personal note, your dedication to this board and the people of the county for a number of years has been there. And I think your resignation on principle is something that people should remember and abide by. On another personal note, you and I have had many experiences together over the years in associations, and I'll miss them. The one thing I won't miss is staying up until 1 o'clock in here every election night. So, you can find somebody else to stay up with.
Well, or I'll sneak by and keep you company.
Yeah, just a few comments from us. It's been a pleasure working with Mary Ann, and I wish I had followed her advice when I first became president. She gave me great advice, and I should have taken it. She's been a public servant for years. She's had her career is unbelievable, and it topped off by 8 years here as president and secretary. She's a good friend, and we all thank her for her dedication, hours and hours of work, and she's just been a terrific partner, and she's a tremendous asset, and I thank her for her friendship and all the hard work you do. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Anybody else have any harsh words? David?
No harsh words. As some of you know, I've known Mary Ann since 1990. So you could say that we've grown up together over a long period of time. Mary Ann is a doer, and she was a doer in 1990 when she got elected to the Central Committee without any support from anyone other than her own campaign. and she was a doer on the Central Committee, and she was definitely a doer as the president of this board. And I won't bore everyone with a list of all the accomplishments of those 4 years, but they were. I think that you did a lot of great things during that time. And I would say I'd miss you, but I have no doubt that we will be talking.
No.
And we will continue for another few decades.
Good.
Good. I like that, decades.
Yeah.
Yes.
At my age, that's important.
I'll add that your reputation for being an election expert is far across the county. People have seen you working very, very hard on the board and before you were on the board with elections, and you've done a great job, and we'll miss you as well.
Thank you, Alan.
You're here.
Thank you.
She's taught me amazing amount of stuff. I love the fact that she crosses the lines when need. She yells at David and she yells at me. And
we both yell back.
Bombastic and wonderful.
You like it more when she yells at David?
Much preferred. And Mary Ann has a grasp of what's going on and a knowledge and an ability to express it, and I find that wonderful. I'm going to miss her terribly at these meetings. Now she's become enormously good, my new best friend, and I've loved watching changes in her and her life over the last few years. That's been fun on a personal note for me to see you smiling so much wider than you used to. And I'm going to miss you at these meetings badly, and I hope we can meet for dinner after every meeting and I can pass it on, because I think you're wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Jim, let me just say, Mary Ann, I certainly don't pretend to know you nearly as long as many of the other people at this table, but I've learned a great deal from you, and I've been very impressed with your professionalism and expertise and your sheer knowledge about how things work in county government. But I think one of the most important lessons you taught me was that you often talked about, checking politics at the door, and we have a tendency to sometimes see things through too partisan of a lens or suspect that someone else does, but I think you very often would see that there were certain principles of good government or good administration that should be accomplished without regard to how partisan interests were affected or viewed it, and that it was simply in the interest of the voters. And I admire your dedication to those principles. Thank you for being a role model to me and all of us.
Well, you all have been more than generous with your remarks, and I deeply, deeply appreciate it. To go back, starting with my good friend Mike Subin, who, has been a partner in crime with me over many, many years and elections, and was fun to have him as the liaison here to the board when I was board president, and a chance to be able to work again together. To all of you board members, I've really enjoyed, David, he's right, 30 years. And when the vacancy first occurred here, right after I became president, there was just one call I made, and it was to David, because we had worked together for 4 years on the Central Committee. But everybody here has taught me a lot. You really have. And it was a different experience and a good experience. I mean, coming in and being president right off from the beginning was really sort of awesome, because I didn't have the kind of election background that this office is all about. And I don't think the public as a whole really understands, the Board of Elections, what is it you people do? And until you're here and, get in the mix of it, you don't understand what an awesome undertaking it is to run an election. And the staff, I certainly agree. Jim says it early and often, how you are, just a tremendous asset here to the state and the people and the citizens in the county, without a doubt. And Margaret, I'm so pleased that you did the rundown today, that you did, pointing out all of these various accomplishments that we don't necessarily see on a day-to-day basis of the staff, because you're formidable, and you should be very proud that the type of service that you've had over the years. It's really wonderful, and we need to have more people know about it. Margaret, you and I have been, you taught me everything when I came here brand new and knowing nothing except I was going to run the show, and I changed where we sat at the table and upset things right from the get-go. But Margaret took it all in stride, and she's like, I've seen this before. So, and Kevin, I don't want to forget you, because certainly serving as board president, I just received the best advice all the time from you, and I really appreciated you keeping me on the straight and narrow, explaining, how things worked, what the legal implications were of this, that, and the other thing. And as board president, you work closely with Kevin. I'm sure you do. I'm a non-lawyer, but I learned early on, having lived my whole life with lawyers between my father and my husband, that you check with the lawyers first. And I always tried to do that, and I always appreciated everything that you did for me. So to all of you, yes, best friend. My Democratic colleagues I've known for some time over the years, but my Republican colleagues I learned and got to know just, by serving on the board here. But it's been true of just about all my endeavors, whether it's my professional work or my political work. My best friends have come out of those associations, and I feel that way about all of you. So thank you very much.
Marianne, on behalf of the staff and myself, you are a spark. When you came on board, you're right, the first day, Margie's running, she's screaming at me. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a wild one. But what's important is that this county needs to challenge the State Board of Elections continuously to make a better product for better service to our voters. And when we've had problems, you not only helped us identify them and flesh them out, you were over at the state board pounding on that table or whatever to make sure that ultimately the issues like with motor vehicles, the Spanish translation, all those different types of things that happened, you were there, you backed us up, and for that the staff very much appreciates all your support in terms of rattling the cages over at the State Board of Elections. And I also believe that the election here in our community, under your leadership as president and secretary, has been a better product. You've made us better. You made us think more. Not always, as quickly as you wanted us to think, but we got it done. So, again, thank you for your service. And from the Montgomery County Council, we have in recognition of your dedication and service since June of 2011 to the Montgomery County Board of Elections and the people of Montgomery County. You have a certificate from Nancy Navarro, and we have these two little parting gifts.
Wow. I like the red and blue significance. Yeah. It wasn't lost on me.
Are you going to open it, Marianne, so we can see what it is?
Mm-hmm. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Emma, you can open it?
Sure.
How about together?
Okay, big one first.
Big one first?
Yeah,
right.
save little ones.
There we go.
Absentee ballots.
No, it's stubs, Ellen. It's stubs.
That's not all funny.
Yeah, web delivery.
Web delivery.
Web delivery.
Do you want to pass out some cupcakes while we're...
Oh my Lord! Look.
Well, we have to go in executive
Wow.
session.
We still have two new business.
Oh, we do?
I
They're short.
Oh, cool. Look at this. It's a compilation of photographs from our time here.
Oh,
Very nice.
oh, isn't that?
Starting
How
when
very
I
clever.
raised my right hand 4 short years ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Wow.
Oh, my
Pretty cool.
word.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah, from day one, huh?
Excellent.
Oh,
Well
isn't
done.
that fun? Oh,
Yeah,
well
that's
done.
neat.
Who's responsible
Wow, who
for
did
this? I
this?
see
This
many
is-
hands here.
This is really
I would
good.
like to acknowledge
You
that
did part- you
Chris,
did part?
Allison, and Lisa,
Oh.
Wow.
And
This
we
is
have
great.
lots of photographers in
and
the
many
building.
This is
photographers.
great.
Oh,
This is great.
Many photographers.
Wow.
isn't this fun?
This is fabulous.
Oh, this is, isn't
Yeah.
it? Oh, yeah.
Wow, what a wonderful gift. Thank
Yeah,
you
that is-
so much.
Oh,
That is
that's
great.
very fun.
Great.
You treasured memories for a long time.
Nahid and I with the...
Yeah, with a lot of
Oh, isn't
provisional
that-
ballots.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yes, be sure.
Yeah.
Oh, what a thoughtful.
That's very creative.
Okay, little one next.
All right, we'll one next here. Huh?
Would you like chocolate or vanilla?
Oh, chocolate, please. Thank you.
Alex, would you like chocolate or vanilla?
Oh boy, I have to break my luncheon sacrifice.
Oh, I know.
Go to the men's room. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I'm just going to the men's room.
There are always special dispensations for things, Alex.
He said chocolate. Just
Oh, we did.
Ooh, look at
Oh,
that.
Nice paperweight.
This is formidable.
Do you have a
Vanilla.
preference?
Vanilla. Thank
So
you.
when you want to bang the table, you've got
Yes,
nothing.
thank you.
somebody.
Oh,
Chocolate.
oh, isn't that
Thank you.
beautiful?
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
What
wow.
do they give you?
Everybody over there.
Oh, look at that.
I
Yeah,
love it.
isn't that?
That's terrific.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Oh, that's beautiful. Lovely, lovely. Well, thank you all so very much. This is
Very thoughtful.
it really is. Both.
So
gifts.
when you need to weigh down those duplicated ballots when they're about to blow off the table, you know?
Very nice.
Very nice.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Yeah. I had no idea because we haven't had anything like this. No.
I know.
No, we've always been expanding, not. Well, yeah. we can get anything
Did we have to do anything about that letter? Did we say just go ahead and mail it?
I have some minor comments.
Oh, I read it and it looked great to me.
Yeah, I have.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I hope you both had fun putting that together. Looking up the old pictures. Yeah.
It was mostly Chris's work.
You'll be missed.
Oh, thank you.
Alice, thank you for all your support. Thank you.
Wow, and aren't these nice?
What's the little box?
There's a paperweight.
Oh yeah, you didn't see. Oh, it's beautiful.
David had, McManus had
Notice the
done something.
little velvet bags.
Done something.
Yes.
That kitty had taken over.
Oh. Very nice.
Isn't it?
Well, then it hasn't.
Yeah,
then they-
beautiful.
I knew his term is long, so it's inspired.
Well, and it might not be right, but I had a conversation with somebody, and I'm not sure who it was, in an hour, Kitty would be refreshing because she's hands-on,
Oh,
she
There
takes,
she is. You can have mine.
takes part, especially if the hierarchy changes in the next year. It's going to be important. Well, good for you, M.A. That's terrific.
Oh,
I love
isn't
it.
that? Yes. How really nice. How special.
Well
I'm
done.
missing something. Oh, here it is. These are very nice. And every.
You're not going to get rid of me.
Oh.
I'll eat it for lunch. Go on, to dinner.
For what?
I said I'll meet you for lunch.
Oh, okay.
Shoot the breeze.
It's so nice to see you smile.
We just keep getting supper.
Good luck with everything before you take a bite.
Oh,
Appreciate all you do.
yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I have said, you know,
Which I don't do.
Special robe
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. It moved a little bit. Yeah. But I appreciate your guidance and
thank you very much.
expertise.
Thank you.
If there's anything you need from us or me, don't hesitate.
Not yet.
Well, and I hope you all know. I mean,
I think we have two new business items and then
Need
what's
a
this?
helping hand for whatever,
definitely.
you know,
And if
absolutely.
you want to do
I
those
expect,
two-
I mean, you know, I won't be
You
able to
don't have
get
to go
through
into
election
that.
day
No,
without
exactly.
What's this?
doing stuff,
Is this-
but.
Can I just make a motion?
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you.
sign. Yeah.
I move that we accept these these.
Reject them.
Well, don't we have to be in?
David has some,
He said we didn't.
huh?
He said we didn't have to.
Oh, we didn't have any changes. Did you have changes to the letter?
I did, and I gave it to Kevin.
Oh, okay.
They were minor.
And they were.
They were minor. They were.
I'm making a motion that we, in place of, or not in place of.
In 2022.
That you make your
No, in
motion to
addition.
reject the five
That we
late,
Make
reject
sure
the
it's okay
five,
with Kevin.
whatever he said.
untimely ballots.
Justin,
I second.
when were these things mailed?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jackie, who seconded the motion?
Miriam.
Mary Ann, okay. It's Lisa, we got Lisa running in and out.
Yeah. And then,
Yes.
Okay.
Give those back.
whenever you're ready, Jim,
Okay. We're,
for new business.
yeah, we go back into new business.
Yum,
Are
yum.
we on the record?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
All this is good.
All of it's on the record.
You need to call on
Every cupcake.
Every cupcake.
Yes, Dave.
I just had two small items for new business. The first is about our June 3rd swearing in, and I wanted to suggest that we invite the public and the Montgomery County elected officials, including the both party committees, to attend our swearing in whenever it should be on June 3rd.
I believe it's at 2:30.
That was my question.
Right.
2:30. It's usually 2 o'clock.
Right.
You know what? Lisa has been talking to Barbara, so. let's
Okay.
wait for Lisa.
Well, whatever time we do, the idea would be to invite our elected officials, remind them that we're here. I would be happy to help contribute towards refreshments if we want to offer refreshments to people. I realize that we don't necessarily have a budget for it, but the idea would be to make a little celebration out of it, like other elected officials do for themselves.
Yeah, that sounds. If we can get people to come, that's great. It's good PR for us. Yeah, it's good.
I don't know if you need a motion. You probably don't.
No, I don't think.
Okay.
Whoa. Speaking of putting tags on things that people that are supposed to do, with the staff, are you asking the staff to send the invitations?
Yes.
All right. Margaret, is that all right? Can you
Sure.
get that done?
Sure.
Thank you.
As soon as, I want to confirm with Lisa.
Right. We
The
want to
time.
confirm the timing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
right now, I think
Yeah.
Barbara Michaeljohn is scheduled to be here at 2:30 on June 3rd.
Okay. Yeah.
But let's confirm that.
Okay. That's good.
So usually there's a meeting afterwards. I take it that might not happen, or?
I was not addressing that question. I would think that a meeting that includes, the kind of orientation that we've had in the past would be useful. I was just suggesting that we do this in addition to that.
Yeah, no, I think that we have to know how long we're supposed to be here. Are we having a meeting? Are we orienting people? Is that the June meeting? Are we going to have real business, or is it just, lemonade and
As
cookies?
I understand,
past-
yeah.
There's an
In the
organization.
past, the
Well,
first
but I-
meeting, when you're sworn in, has historically been, you're sworn in, you elect your officers, and then at the next meeting is the
Oh.
orientation, where Kevin goes over Open Meetings Act and all of the elements
I thought that
have.
4 years ago we did it the same day that we elected officers.
I think we did.
I'm-
You're
I'm-
correct, Dave.
I'm-
But I
yeah.
think it would be easy not just to do it during the first meeting.
Okay.
Elect officers and then do the,
You're saying do the election of officers on the 3rd, do the orientation on the 17th.
correct.
And
Especially if you're going to invite a bunch of people here.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know how long.
Yeah, they're
right,
not
that's
gonna-
fine. That's I didn't have a strong opinion about that. I did think it would be a good idea to invite people to come. And then my second new business item was just for the June 17th meeting that I'd like to get a status report from the staff about their thoughts, their early thoughts on early voting and on anything that we're doing to address wait time.
Address what?
Wait times.
Wait.
And I realize that in June you may not have all of your,
We can get started.
Yeah, but just an idea of what is being considered. Which locations do we feel like we have, no need to change anything, that there are locations where we want to consider larger space or smaller space or, anything like that.
Yeah,
And
well,
obviously-
David,
Yeah.
just so you know, I did speak with Jim earlier this month and had suggested that at that time we would provide you with a proposed early voting calendar so that you know how you're going. Because Alan has also asked some questions about early voting,
Right.
as well as to identify the polling place calendar, because we will be we'll be returning to some locations,
Right.
so that
Right.
you guys know what kind is coming. So that was planned.
That sounds great. When you're talking about a calendar, is that merely a description of when we're going to learn information, or does that come with what we know as of that time about the information? So, for example, I don't know when the rec center in Wheaton is going to be ready
Rec Center will be ready
for the primary.
for the primary.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
our poll books are paying for it.
and-
Our not buying new poll books are going to make sure that
Are paying for the rec center.
are paying for the opening in time.
I gotta say,
for
I'll bet the rec center costs more than our poll books. But
opening in time for the early voting.
and for example, are we considering? I know Park and Planning is going to have a new headquarters that's in downtown Wheaton, closer to the metro, much closer to the metro, like adjoining the metro. And has any thought been given to whether that's a possible location?
We're looking at several locations down
Is
in
the old
Silver
Park and
Spring.
Planning?
No, I'm not talking to Silver Spring. I'm talking about Wheaton.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The new Park and Planning building is literally across the street from the metro in Wheaton.
In that triangle.
In Wheaton
Yeah, I
Triangle,
know what you mean.
where
My
the parking
question
lot
is,
used to be.
what's happening to the old one?
The old parking planning? Nothing yet, I don't believe.
That might be available.
The old parking planning facility, we have been advised, may not be available.
Because maybe tearing it down?
Because I think it's
Right.
becoming a parking lot.
Oh,
That's
that
funny.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So one parking lot becomes parking planning, and parking planning becomes a parking.
But with regards to this, no, but let me check with Chris.
Yeah. I mean, my thought was just to have a meeting at which you can tell us where things stand with the various places.
We will.
And I understand our decisions don't get made until sometime after that, but it would be good to know where things stand. And that's all I have.
I was going to ask that same question. So that
Okay. In terms of the next meeting, it's my view that since we have a number of us going to Mayo the day after our next scheduled meeting, and we're meeting June 3rd, that we shouldn't have the May 20th meeting.
And if anything in crisis comes up, we can do it on June 3rd.
Yeah. I mean, we're meeting, like
If we have
within
to.
2 weeks of May 20th, and we have the Mayo meeting. So my view is, if it's all right with the board, not to have the May 20th meeting. Any thoughts on that?
I have no problem.
No problem with that.
Okay, so no May 20th meeting.
Okay,
We got to put up the June on the website.
I will.
Yeah, no May 20 and June 3rd.
It'll be it's considered an executive function.
But it's
and
public.
We'll have a swearing in of the officers of the board of elections.
Could we also, in addition to inviting the elected officials, could we? We want to invite the public as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize if it's an executive function, you don't have to invite the public.
Yeah.
But,
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to invite the Central Committee chair.
For the members?
Yeah.
We'll have separate seating.
Yeah, Mark, the two central committees.
Where's it gonna be?
I was
We're
gonna
sounding-
say, you're inviting a lot of people.
Well,
I'm just gonna
but
hope
you
that
have-
training room.
Yeah, the training room.
Training room.
About a third at
Training
the
room.
most will show.
Understood.
Oh, yeah. Training room?
Okay, let me talk to Lisa and Allison and Chris, so I can flesh this out. You know,
Yeah,
maybe
and-
what we'll do is from 2:30 to 4:30.
Yeah, and if you need
People
any
can drift
contribute,
in
you know,
and
with,
drift
and
out.
I'm happy to contribute for refreshments.
Yeah, because to try to,
You know?
as Marianne and Nahid will tell you, if you invite 1,000 people, we don't want them all showing up in the parking lot at exactly. It could be problematic.
Yeah, what was the event we did?
The election judge appreciation with high.
I remember,
Oh,
and
my
they
word.
did all show up at the same time. I remember.
Yes, yes. We were cutting sandwiches in half.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so no meeting May 20th, June 3rd, executive function. Staff will develop a kind of a plan on how to
And I'm willing to chip-
institute that, and then
chip in for
June
refreshments.
17th will be the orientation status report on early voting and polling places, addressing wait times, and I'll check with Chris about this Wheaton.
And I would like to suggest that we keep it extraordinarily simple. We don't have a campaign
Alan?
fund to take the money from. Like
Alan.
our
Thanks, Alan.
Your
elected
yeah,
officials do.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right. Fair enough.
In fact, they're prohibited by law.
Okay.
Executive session?
Okay, so let's, we gotta go out of this, into, and then back, right? We gotta go into an executive session?
You need a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
I make a motion that the Board of Elections go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.